Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers, David McAdam.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to day 2. Pleasure to have you all here. Thank you for being here. And I know we're not right on time, but we're right on Dubai time, so it works for me, it works for all of us. So thank you very much. Yesterday we had a huge day. I know a lot of you were here for the whole thing, and I wanted to, first of all, thank you for sitting through all of the presentations that we had. Thank you for your support. But the most important thing that I heard was we were having the very best networking events ever in the RECON. And I think that's a really important statement to hear from more than a handful of people. So this is what it's all about. It's all about taking the time to look at your neighbor beside you, chat with them, figure out what's going on, asking them if there's anything you can do to help them in their business. You'll be amazed to what you find out. You'll also be amazed to what that opportunity might be. So that's the first thing that I found out about it yesterday. The other thing is that people enjoyed the food. I mean, that's an important thing. Sometimes they say the food's awful, but this time they said the food was great, so I love that. And the other part of it is that it was great to see everybody who I really look at as my friends that are in the industry, and everybody is here that is here. I've been associated with, or most everybody, for so many years. It's just my pleasure to reconnect with you all. And I think that's one of the main things that you, as delegates here and as sponsors and exhibitors, that's a really important part of it. So thank you for that. Yesterday also, we hosted our annual general meeting. Yesterday also, we finished off with the elections of our new board, and I'm here to say that the press release has already gone out, which I'm so thrilled about. We have a great new board, and I'm going to announce them all now. They're in no specific order, but I'm going to go through them all. Alessandro Gaffuri, he was well voted in, so Alessandro is a founder and CEO of the Sales Group and in the United Arab Emirates, but he's also very active in the other markets in the GCC. So great to have him here. Also GCC, but also in Europe as well, he was saying. So also from JLL, we have Alfred, Abi, and Toon. And Alfred has been with JLL for some time. I'm really looking forward to working with Alfred. He's a great guy, and I've shared the stage with him, and I think Jeddah and Riyadh both, so it's great to be having him active with us as well. I'm thrilled as well to have Maimouna Shabahi back with us, so thank you very much, Maimouna. It's great to be able to work with you, and I know that we have a lot of things to do together for you, your industry, and for Oman overall. So what has happened this year is we've got a lot of different people from different corners of the GCC this year, and I think it's very strong, shows strong support for what we're trying to do as an organization, and we look forward to working with them. Marcella Rizza, also the General Manager of Line Investments and Property LLC, and Marcello and I have gone back many years. He's been in the region, I think, with Line Investments for, I think, 10 years. I don't know, Marcello, are you around here? I think it's about 10 years that he's been there, so he's no stranger to the region. We love it when people have a great depth of background and knowledge in what's going on. A first for us for a long, long time, Nada Abu Sab. And Nada and I, she just recently launched a new food concept in Dura City Center. So she's so active in the industry. It's great to see her. And she's also, she's the Director of Marketing Majid Al Futtaim Properties in the UAE, but her remit is all over the GCC, so thank you. I look forward to working with you on the board as well. Thanks, Nada. And from Beirut, we have Roni Ayoun. And so, Roni, thank you. I really appreciate you being part of this. It's going to bring a whole different flavor and a look on the whole outlook and what we can do. And I think Roni's mandate, he's telling me when we were chatting earlier, his mandate is really to focus on expanding the footprint of the MECSC, which I really look forward to. So we look forward to working together with you on that one. So I think that's it. Mazen Kondil and Wael Bakir, they're also on here. Here we go. These are out of order. So Wael has done a phenomenal job for us. We had the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce and the Jeddah Recon Forum. This is a couple of years ago now. And Wael's tireless efforts and energy to make that a successful event for us should be truly noted, was truly noted, but I want to recognize you again. But for that reason alone, I'm thrilled to have you on board as part of the board because, Whale, I know you and I can do a lot together. I know we're working with the Jeddah Chamber to do more work together this year or early next year. We'll work together on it, but we look forward to your involvement. So thank you for putting your name forward. Mazen Kandil, Mazen and I go back. He is heading up, general manager, I believe, of, let me just get his exact title. He is heading up Granada Center. Now, Mazen and I go back till 2010, so about 8 years ago, and I was in the JLL office, and I met him then. And I'm so thrilled to have Mazen on board. First of all, another Saudi person, which is great for us. But Mazen is a tireless worker, and the best part about Mazen, too, is that he never takes no for an answer. And I've seen him in business. I've seen him, we've been in meetings together, and I like the fact that he's very determined on what he's going to do. He's already had some huge success with Granada Center, raising the profile of the entertainment industry in Granada Center in Riyadh. So please join me in welcoming the new board. That is fantastic for us. I will also say, while I'm on the subject, that the board meeting is 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I will update you with the exact location of it shortly, but it is 3 o'clock this afternoon. If we can meet there, we'll have the old board and the new board meet, and we'll kick off the next session. So thank you. That's that part of it. I wanted to also, and I know I went through this yesterday, I'm going to go through it again because it's very, very important for us to recognize the support and effort and energy that all of our sponsors have given us to make this all a worthwhile endeavor. And the first one, again, is Dubai Association Center. Top left on the screen, you can see here. Hassan Al-Hashmi and his team have done great things for us, and I know that as things become more complicated for us to host events, not only like this, but hosting other events in the region, it becomes very important for us to ensure that our relationships with the other governmental authorities in the UAE are at the highest level, and that the DAC Association Center is that for us. Arabian Oud as well, so thank you so much for your support. Sells Events as well, you can see their exhibition area out there. The gold sponsors, Dalma Mall, so thank you, Dalma Mall again. United Asset Property Management, and I know that I was chatting with them today, this morning early, and they're so happy with their location on the exhibition floor. They want to come back for the same one next year, and we will certainly enable that, I can assure you. It's great to have your support. Al Raji Investment, thank you. Line Investments and Property LLC, and that team, thank you for all of the food that you've provided and also for the lunches. Gulf Related, we met with Daniel Perry on stage yesterday. It was great to have your support. Red Sea Mall, as a sponsor every year, we really appreciate your continued support. Backlight Media, Jeddah Park, thank you so much. Oud Elite, again, the stand is just outside. V-Count, I know that the traffic count is going to be well documented at this event, so I'm looking forward to hearing what our numbers are. Already I can tell you that we're trending the same as last year, roughly, up maybe a little bit, but we'll have that by the end of the day. Keenan International Real Estate Development, thank you for your support. Retail Emotions, Al Hokair Group, and I was seeing Michelle on the stand yesterday. Hamat Property Company, thank you, gentlemen. Alothame Leisure and Tourism, thank you to Fahad and his team. Tamdeen Group, and I was seeing David here yesterday in Avijit. Thank you for your support. Also, Mazen with Granada Investment Center, Granadia, so thank you very much. Buzz Management and Marketing Consultancy, Opta Fashion with their fabulous booth that you've got out front. You've got to have a look at it. It's an amazing situation for them where they have facial recognition and they put glasses on you. You have to check it out. Yardi, Saeed Haider, thank you. Sharouk, thank you for being here. It's great to see you again, Albert, and the rest of the team. Thank you for your support. Blacher Illumination, thank you. Expand Retail, powered by Savant Data Systems, thank you. JLL again, thank you for that. Life on Screen, Marketing Management, Thank you for that. Sharper Track as well, with George and Malcolm, thank you for your support. And for Kingsman as well, thanks for all of your support and putting this all together for us. So today we have some great speakers lined up. We have a slight change in the lineup because Dr. Tommy Weir is going to join us on stage first, and Kate is going to come shortly after Tommy's appearance. And let me welcome to the stage again Rania Ali, who is our MC for the day again. Please join me in welcoming Rania to the stage. Thank you, Rania. Please enjoy the event, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you. Thanks, Rania. Okay.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rania Ali, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you on the second day of RECON 2018. I'm very excited this morning, and you're a wonderful and a lovely, fantastic audience to look at. Yesterday was a very fruitful day, and we had fantastic speakers and really great panel discussions. I was speaking with so many of you, and a lot of you found it fruitful and very useful. Today is going to be another day of top industry expert speakers telling us all about the latest trends in their industries. And I'm very glad that many of you had a good networking opportunity yesterday, the day before, and hopefully today as well. So we're going to start off by our first keynote address for the day, and that's by Dr. Tommy Weir. And he joins us from Dubai, where he heads up MECSC. He has 20 years of experience in leadership research and coaching CEOs with data science. He has also built the world's first leadership AI lab, and where MECSC's team of data scientists and leadership experts help organizations radically improve their productivity. Let's all please welcome him to the stage with a very big round of applause.
So, how many of you think that AI is going to replace jobs? So as you're sitting here today, how many of you think that artificial intelligence is going to begin to replace jobs that are sitting in front of you? For example, automation is going to come in and begin to decrease the jobs. Robots are going to show up to work. They're going to show up to the shopping malls. They're going to begin to do the interactions with us. So how many of you think AI is going to replace jobs that are going on around us? Now, I've heard this debate for several years now, and I've had a really hard time getting my head around it. Because every time I thought about robotics and the automation coming to work, I used to picture this robot that was in Rocky IV when the robot was given to Polly for his birthday. I used to picture this robot trying to show up to work, and I used to think, here I am, and I'm going to a mall, and I'm interacting with somebody, and that robot's going to show up, and how do I feel? And I had a really hard time getting around it until I began to understand that what we're talking about is a silent robot. It's actually an invisible robot. It's behind the scenes. We don't actually see it. Actually, 90% of the people believe that AI is going to take jobs away from other people. It's a huge debate. It's a difficult debate. As we sit here and we begin to think about, are humans going to have jobs in the future, or is everything going to be done by a machine? But if we actually look at this, the question shouldn't be man versus machine. It's the wrong question. It's the wrong debate. And let me explain why. In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. And guess what the debate became? The cotton gin is going to replace jobs. And then we can fast forward about another century and we get into the era of Henry Ford and the assembly line, and all of a sudden the machine, the factory, is going to replace jobs. And then we can get into our own lifetimes, or definitely my lifetime. Some of you are a little bit younger than I am. And we get to this era of this computer showing up. I remember in 4th grade, the first computer, a TRS-80, showing up in our house. But the debate began to emerge that computers are going to replace our jobs. Again, the machine is going to take over. I have a job. And I think all of you have jobs today. And yet we have survived a cotton gin, an assembly line, a computer, and guess what? We're still going to have jobs in the era of artificial intelligence. So we shouldn't be saying man versus machine. We should actually be saying man and machine. So as we're sitting today and talking about artificial intelligence, and as we're looking at future-proofing retail, I want you to have a very open mind as we look at it, but simultaneously, I want you to put it into the realm of reality. And it's not sitting and thinking, what can the machine do instead of the human? The question is, what can we do together? Now, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this to you. 2 years ago, I was invited to go to Tokyo by one of the top guys here in Dubai, one of the top guys. He said to me, he said, hey, Tommy, join me in Tokyo. Let's learn about artificial intelligence. And I thought, this is great. I get to go to Tokyo. I didn't really care about learning about the AI part. I was thoroughly excited just to go to Tokyo. I'd never been there. I wanted to experience it. I'd heard the food was great. I was thrilled about the Tokyo side. I didn't fully know what he meant when he said, let's go learn about AI. And he wasn't very descriptive of this, and he happens to have a high enough position that you don't ask a lot of questions. You just typically say, yes, let's go. This sounds like a great idea. So I got on the airplane, and we're flying to Tokyo, and I remember sitting in my seat and watching a movie, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, I don't even believe in AI. I was an utter, complete skeptic about artificial intelligence. I thought, at the end of the day, some man wrote the code that goes with it anyhow, so it's nothing more than just like kind of coding at a bigger degree. What's the big deal? And I'm like, and how can a computer ever have emotion? How can it connect with me? How can we actually have this real interaction? I was a complete skeptic. I was on the plane not believing at all. Now we got there, and we had Joey Ito, the president of MIT Media Lab, was our lead tutor, and there were 8 other tutors and 2 of us. Now, to put this in perspective, that's a 1-to-4 ratio of 4 teachers to 1 student, not 4 students to 1 teacher. So we had these literally from the moment of breakfast in the car ride, and we were looking at AI in physical space, we were looking at AI in retail, we were looking at we were in Google's driving labs, we were in Sony's labs. I mean, we got to see the full spectrum of it. I remember our first morning. It's about 10:30 in the morning. We're in the van going from location A to location B, and I'm running my mouth as I normally would. And Joey Ito, the president of MIT Media Lab, looks at me and says, Tommy, could you be quiet? And I looked at him and I said, Joey, sure, but why? He goes, you are so ignorant on this topic that you don't even know it. Why don't you learn a little bit about what's going on with AI and then ask questions? So to begin with, just be quiet. Now the weekend passed, and I got on the airplane flying back, and I had gone from an utter skeptic about artificial intelligence to becoming an absolute cheerleader of what it can do and the impact that it can have in our lives, the positive impact that it can begin to have in our lives. I came back to Dubai, and I actually decided to learn to code. I did not come up through a computer science background. I didn't come up through a math background. I didn't come up through a statistics background. Okay, I came up through a leadership background. So I am in like the antithesis of the mental space to learn to code. But I hired somebody to teach me how to code, not with the intent of ever coding. Okay, I don't want to like code all day long. But in the midst of that, I started to discover that artificial intelligence can absolutely radically impact our lives. And I'm going to lay out today what I want to talk about is artificial intelligence remaking retail. And then I'm going to get into a specific area inside there that we're solving for. But as we do that, here's what I want to lay out for you. Number one, we need to make a transition from BI to AI. For all of you who have a digital strategy right now, and that's kind of your thing you're looking to in the future, I have really bad news for you. You're toast. Your history. It's not going to come to be. If you're thinking about a future digital strategy, you're in trouble. If you're looking and going, look at the analytics we have today, and look, we have BI, we have business intelligence today, you're living in a decade backwards. Now, to put this in perspective, I spend about every other week in Silicon Valley right now. And every week I'm there, I realize that they don't kind of take a step up, they like jump every other week in regard to what's going on in the progression. So I want to kind of put this in perspective. Business intelligence tends to look at two dimensions or three dimensions. It tends to be things you can put up on a screen and that the human on the other end of it can make sense of, that you can begin to figure out what's going on. We're usually asking ourselves two key questions. What happened and why did it happen? Business intelligence, while we talk about the predictive nature of it, we're usually looking backwards to begin to figure that out. Now, the dimensionality is the key part of this, okay? You can process two dimensions quite easily, like speedily. We can process three dimensions quite speedily. We can't process 100 dimensions. And what makes it even more difficult is 100 dimensions actually starts getting into the millions of different scenarios. And all of a sudden, artificial intelligence is able to work with the multidimensionality of it. It can work with the wide spectrum. And this kind of drives me back into what really intrigued me when I was in Tokyo. One comment was made to me: the computer never forgets. And as that was going on, as that was being said to me at a dinner time, I was trying to remember what was told to me at the beginning of the day. If you think about that, do you remember the conversations that you just had out here in the hallway an hour ago? And a computer never, ever forgets. In addition to that, I have a limitation of how much I can process, how much I can observe, how much I can take in at one time. That camera that are sitting in this room right now can do image recognition simultaneously. When I'm seeing you guys, it's seeing everybody, and it's calculating every picture against social media, or could be. I'm not saying it is. Let me back up on this, okay? I need to be real careful on that. I don't know what Ritz Carlton's doing with it, but they literally right now could be running image recognition against all public available images and social media and everything else to begin to figure out who you are right now, and I'm looking at about 10 of you. And it's figuring out the couple hundred in the room and what's going on simultaneous. So when we begin to look at it, all of a sudden the multidimensionality, but here's the key part. Are you ready? Have you ever wanted to know the future so you could act on it today? Becoming a data organization and using data and using artificial intelligence, it gives you the chance to be in the future today. You can start to predict what's going to happen, and because you can predict what's going to happen, you can start to make a recommendation in order to go make it happen. Now let me use an example to bring this into the artificial intelligence remaking retail space. I was telling somebody earlier today, I said, you know that when I buy a movie ticket, you know where I'm going to be? Think about this. Are you ready? When I buy a movie ticket, you know where I'm going to be. Is that fair? So if I was to say to my wife, hey, let's go to the movies on Friday night, and today's Tuesday, is that correct? Okay, so see, we need artificial intelligence. So it's Tuesday at 10:50 in the morning. If I said, hey, let's go to the movie Friday night, she said, that's great. I grab my phone, I go to the app of the theaters that we tend to go to. We pick a movie, let's say at 8:30 p.m. Friday night. We're going to go to Mall of the Emirates for the sake of this. Sorry to rule anybody out in that discussion. You can put it in any mall you want. They know that I'm going to actually be in Mall of the Emirates on Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Is that fair? They know it. Now let's think about this let's put this in perspective. What goes on around 8:30? Dinner. Now, in this example, I'm booking a regular ticket rather than one that comes with a meal. Okay? And guess what? They know that also. They know that I didn't do Rhodes Theater where I'm going to have food with it, but I booked a regular ticket. They know that. They future. So they go Friday night. Tommy is going to be in a mall, Tommy and his wife, at 8:30 p.m. They did not do anything for dinner yet. You can begin to predict quite reasonably, I'm going to want to eat. Is that fair? I'm going to want to eat dinner. And you can begin to think about what's going to go on with that and what could we do. Now, if you have some decent data, especially if you have Wi-Fi networks, you can actually know where I ate before. Because most everybody walks into the mall, they switch their data over to the Wi-Fi of the mall, and once they do that, you get the geolocation of everywhere I go. You can see how I move through. You can see when my time slowed down in a particular location. You can see, that's funny, every time that they leave the mall, they stop by Papa John's and pick up a pizza. And then from there, they leave the mall. You can see this. You know this. You know me. You know my habits. You know every move I'm going to make. The data's sitting in your hands. The question is, what are you doing with it? The question is, how are you making my experience better? How are you predicting my future? How are you making a recommendation to go on? I remember, this was about 2 years ago. I was actually sitting in a movie, and towards the end of the movie, I was trying to decide, do I want to go pick up a pizza or not? Pizza's my favorite food, if you haven't figured that out. So I was trying to decide at the end of the movie, do I want to go grab a pizza or not before we head out of the theater? And kind of going through your mind, do I want to wait the 20 minutes to get it? Do I want to order now while I'm sitting here? Could I get that ordered quite easily in the middle of it? What kind of crowd is it going to be? Do I want to deal with all the people in the mall, or do I just want to slip out the door? You know, the rational questions you would go through. I left without the pizza. Okay, so I left 100 dirham unspent in the mall on that, maybe 150 probably when it gets all done. So I left 150 dirham unspent that night. It just popped into my phone. Not even a discount. I didn't need a coupon. I wasn't looking for a bargain. All I needed was a nudge, a recommendation. We can have your pizza ready for you. Something simple to just kind of trigger me to go to the next step, to move on. But here's one of the difficulties. AI comes from data. You need data. It's the availability of data. Now, the interesting part is the world creates 10 to the 18th power. I don't even know what number that is in regard to it, but 10 to the 18th power new data per day. But if I was to sit and look across this room, we're going to have in the room right now, we're going to have point of sale data, okay, would be sitting in this room. Wi-Fi data is going to be sitting in this room. We're going to be looking at geo-tracking movements that are going to go on the room. Future decisions I've made are going to be going into the room. All of my social media likes, dislikes, interactions, everything I've done is in the room. My cookies for my searches are available to sit in the room right now, but they're in pockets. And we don't let the data talk to each other, and if we're not talking to each other, you can't make my experience better. And what we have to do is to start to figure out, how do we literally take the data to lead into the future and create an entirely different environment out of it so that you can nudge me, make the recommendation, make my experience better, change my life in the way I want. I was with a large retail group yesterday, and we were talking about one of the points we're going to get to in a moment. And they actually said to us, they said, one of our key concerns is we actually don't know our high-value customer until they check out. We don't even know they were in our stores. So a top customer who buys a lot is in the store shopping, and we don't know it until they check out what's going on. And I said, that's interesting because the mall knew they were here. The shopping mall actually knew they were in the mall, but you didn't know they were in your store. And we're not talking to put that together to begin to make the realization, to make the change. You can literally, utterly change my life by making predicting and making recommendations. Now, if you think about this, I find it fascinating. I get a phone call every single day from a bank selling me a credit card. I don't want a credit card. I don't need a credit card. I don't remember the last time I got a new credit card. So they're spending up-teen hours per day trying to sell credit cards to other people. I'm really irritated when it's my own bank trying to sell me a credit card and I already have a credit card with them. And I'm going, you should know I have a credit card with you. That shouldn't even be going on. So I'm looking and we get literally bombarded with stuff we don't want. Is that correct? I think everybody knows that. SMSs from offers, and you're going, I've never even been to your store. I don't even know who you are. I have no interest at all in you. But yet the people that I want to hear from, I don't hear from. The people that I want to interact with, the people that I shop with regularly, I want you to tell me when you get new merchandise. I want you to tell me when you get in what I like. I want you to tell me that the jeans that I just Googled online, you have in your store, in my size, and you would even hold them for me or send them to my house for me. I want you to interact with me.
The brands I like, I want to have a relationship with. I want to have an experience with. Now, the ones I don't like, I don't really want anything with them. But what I find fascinating is how few brands, and I'm not speaking here, I'm speaking retail in general, actually interact with me at that particular level. So I'm a Nike fanatic, okay? I love Nike shoes. I grew up with them. There's a couple of brands that kind of emerged in my own lifetime, and I remember growing up with them. About 2 years ago, Nike started doing a retro collection. So they started coming out with the original versions of their shoes again. And I found this out a little bit after it had come out in the original Cortez, one of those, about shoe number 3 that Nike had done. I had saw it, and I started Googling for it, and it was sold out. And pretty much every day I would go back and check that maybe the Cortez had shown up, and it's sold out. And when I would go to a Nike store, I would ask, and it's sold out. So I'm Googling the Nike Cortez almost every day. I was desperately after this shoe. I wanted it badly. The interesting thing is Nike actually flooded the market with it again. It showed up. The inventory was replenished. I'll put it that way. Not flooded the market. They replenished their inventory. Do you think Nike ever told me that? Do you think Nike nudged me and said, hey, Tommy, you've Googled this shoe. You've searched for it 482 times, and it's available today. Do you think they proactively did that? I actually searched on Nike's site. I wasn't even on Google. I was in Nike.com, okay, looking for the shoe in Nike.com, and I happened to run, so Nike.com knows very well who I am, and they know my purchase history, but they never once told me the shoe was available. Now, if you begin to think, that's the opportunity, that's the experience, that's where I want the relationship with you. It's not a transaction. It's not just the spending money. Cultivate that relationship with me, and your sales will grow. The sales will go up because you're going to begin to put things in my path as I want them and what I need. Make sense? There's another area I want to dive into. One of them is supply chain optimization. You can make drastic changes in this. I was in Washington in July of this year, and I was there for work, and my wife sent me a message about 7:30 in the morning. I just got back from a run, and she said, hey, can you pick up she was in Beirut at the time. She said, can you pick up for my sister? Her sister named Rima. Can you pick up for Rima an Apple Watch? I meant to get one when we were there on vacation. Her birthday's coming up. Can you pick one up? Now, I wanted to say no. I didn't really want to be bothered to have to go to the Apple store to go pick up this Apple Watch and to go through it. I'm being very transparent with you. But my response had to be yes, correct? I wanted to say no, but I had to say yes. So I decide I'm going to go online, and I'm leaving the next day. So in my head, there's no way that this watch could get delivered to me. There's no way at all. I'm going to have to figure out the time in my schedule today. I'm going to have to take an Uber. I'm going to have to go to the Apple store in Georgetown. I was on the other side of the White House at this particular point. So I go to their website. I go in, and I see that they have this. And then it says at the bottom, would you like this delivered to you in 2 hours? 2 hours for $9. $9 was cheaper than the Uber ride there, let alone the Uber ride there and back. I'm like, absolutely. So there I am. The store's not open yet. No one's in the store probably. They opened like at 10. And I go and I hit the button. I say, get it delivered. They delivered it from the Georgetown store, the one I was going to have to go to, so this wasn't in a distribution center elsewhere, in the bag, as though it was sold in the store, to the concierge at the hotel who put it in my room. I loved it. I thought that was the best possible thing. They saved me time. They saved me effort. They made my no that I didn't really want to do actually a reality because I didn't have to do it. And they turned that around for me. And the reason that Apple was able to do that is they've optimized their supply chain. Apple no longer thinks in regard to what's in a distribution center or thinks of store inventory at a collective level. They track every single item and make every item in their supply chain all the way down to what's on a shelf available for sale through the multi-channels, through the omni-channel experience of it. They have seamlessly put the model back together. This is what's coming our way, is to begin to sell out of the store to somebody else rather than out of the distribution center. And there's some massive changes that are going on. But there's one area I want to get into. I want to get into a really fun area. I want to get into employee productivity. So when I was in Tokyo and coming back from Tokyo, and I learned to code, a year later, that was 2 years ago in October 16, October 17, actually yesterday, 1 year ago, one of the chairmen of a company, happened to be the guy I was in Tokyo with, we had been doing a project for him on productivity, and their rate of productivity growth was declining. So I want to explain what I mean by productivity. Productivity is actually the output per hour worked. So if you have 10 people working, they work 8-hour days, that's 80 hours of input. And what they were seeing is they used to sell, for the sake of this, 80 items. So they had an output of 1 per hour worked. And all of a sudden, they're seeing that it's not 80 items sold in a day, it's 70 items sold in a day. But they still have the 80 hours. So they're now sitting at whatever this would be, a 0.9 output per hour worked. So they're seeing this. And he says to me, he goes, what should we do? I said, you should create a productivity engine. He's like, I like that. That's really good. The next statement I made out of my mouth was one of the best statements I've ever made in my life, and also one of the stupidest statements I've ever made in my life. I said, and you should use AI in it. He goes, great, do it. Now, I know how to code, and I'm using that as a very hesitant term. I should not go code this. I have no clue how to code at that particular level. So I went and hired a team of data scientists. We hired PhDs from Berkeley, from Columbia, from University of Chicago. And we hired this rock star group of guys to solve a particular problem for this one customer in regard to productivity. But as we began to look at it, we found something out. We actually found out that productivity growth, specifically in the service sectors, is flat. Absolutely flat. So you are not getting anything more today out of your employees than you were getting a year ago. And retail in most areas is actually not flat, it's below flat. So we're sitting and we have these people on the floor selling, we have people in the warehouses, but the volume isn't going through as the rate of the volume that used to go through. And all of a sudden we're finding here in the region, it's a different issue in the US, but we're finding here in the region that the labor that used to be cheap is no longer cheap. Fair? We used to think it doesn't cost much to have the person in the store, but all of a sudden we're finding that's very expensive. But here's some interesting components in it. The data that we've been working with, and the example I'm going to give in some of the illustration here, there's 480 million rows of data. Okay, so this is a healthy amount of data in this particular scenario. So the data we're working with, we found out that the average person in this area does 13.2 tasks per hour at 1.5 minutes per task. They work 20 minutes an hour. By the way, you pay for the whole hour. Okay, they work 20 minutes of the hour. So we went and looked at popular surveys that have been done in this area, and the survey structure is usually like this. How many hours do you work per week? And the answers are somewhere between 40 and 45 hours. How many hours do you, the individual, the person, consider, how many of those hours do you consider to be productive? And that number works out to be about 3 hours a day. And then we went and did an exhaustive lit review and looked at what the academics had to say, the MITs, the Harvards, the Stanfords, and guess what? It's about 3 hours per day. So what we can conclude standing here is you pay for 8 hours a day and you get about 3 in return for it. So the question begins, what can we do about it? How can we make this change? Because right now we're dealing with a flat productivity rate and it's going down, and frankly, it's killing your bottom line. But the problem isn't productivity. It's actually a management and leadership problem. Now I want to put this in perspective for you. About 80% of the general workforce, in your world it's a little bit higher than this, it's something closer to 85% in retail, are individual contributors. And then you got this group called these frontline managers, whatever title you want to use, store manager, assistant manager, the people that oversee the individual contributors. That's about 10% of a workforce. But there's something you need to notice about that level. They're generally the least experienced level of management and leadership in a company. Fair? They're the ones that have been in the roles for a short period of time, that all of a sudden they have the responsibility of overseeing 80 to 85% of your workforce. So if the productivity is off, the question comes back to say, what are they doing to fix that? Ideally, in an ideal world, it goes like this. I don't know if how many of you remember this, but a long time ago, you had somebody called a supervisor. And here's what a supervisor did. Can I borrow this for a second? A supervisor had a clipboard, and he had a team of about 10 people. Okay? He didn't have a budget meeting that he had to prepare for. He didn't have a strategy that he had to come up with. He didn't have some who knows what bureaucratic report to do. He didn't have email, and he didn't have to go to a meeting. He stood there with a clipboard and watched the 10 people work to see if they were doing what they should be doing throughout the day. But even in this, let's forget the complexity of today, okay? If I'm watching 10 people, I'm actually watching 1/10 of a person at any given time. Is that fair? So if I want to watch 10 people work 8 hours a day, I need 80 hours to watch 10 people work 80 hours a day. I have 8 hours to watch 10 people work 80 hours a day. So even that old model was greatly flawed. But here's what goes on today. We have things called offices. We have back rooms in retail spaces. We are at a distance. People are out. They're away from us. Our head office is here. Our mall is there. They're at a distance. We have email. We have WhatsApp. We have meetings. We have budgets. We have business plans. We have problems. We have high net worth or we have high value customers come into the store, and we also have people that complain come into the store. And every one of those starts to eat up the day. In addition to that, I was probably never taught how to do the job because remember, I'll spend a little bit of money to train you, but I'm not going to spend a lot because you're not a very expensive employee to me. So we've made this trade-off in the midst of it. And they're usually promoted because either they worked a long time and they ended up just kind of getting there. Okay? They're usually not, they don't have a lot of experience at it yet. The worst case is the ones that have been there a long time. They still don't have a lot of experience usually because they didn't get promoted on upward. Because the ones that are good keep getting promoted up. The ones that stay usually aren't the best leaders and managers in the world. And we've said, I'm going to trust everything into your hands. But guess what? We just can't do it. So we stepped back and said, okay, let's solve it. I come from a leadership point of view. We got these really bright data scientists who said, let's break this down. And we figured out that we actually know what an employee is going to do before they actually do it. Because your whole day is time-stamped. There's a bunch of data on the employee. There's data on the customers that can be used for customer experience and sales. There's also data on the employees. The whole day is time-stamped. When they go to the point of sale, the POS, it's time-stamped. When they log into a system, it's time-stamped. When they do an action, it's time-stamped. Your whole day has these little milliseconds of timestamps behind it. And because you know what they can do, you can actually predict what they're going to do. Actually, on the way here today, I was given a department of 82 people, okay? And it's predicting what's going to happen in the future. So it's predicting over the next 6 months what's going to happen. Sorry, not 82, it's 88 people. It's predicting over the next 6 months what's going to happen. Are you ready for this? 51 of them are going to decrease their productivity over the next 6 months. 37 are going to improve their productivity. It's in the data. It says it. It's laid out. If you begin to think about that, that's literally, what is that, about 60% of your workforce, if we were to extrapolate this and roll it out, is going to be a worse employee in 6 months than they are today, if we begin to look at it. We looked at this wide range of variance. It takes two people doing the same thing. There's about a 261% variance. 261% variance. So that means that if David takes 10 minutes, it takes me 36 minutes. It takes me 26 minutes more to do the same thing. And we said, let's look at this. That's what I saw with my eyes, okay? This is me in the BI kind of world looking at it. Here's what the AI said. Are you ready? They said, you're wrong. Because I looked at the 261% variance was there, and I drew this conclusion instantaneously. I said, there's good guys and bad guys in that. Is that fair? There's guys that are really good at their job, and there's guys that aren't really good at their job in it. So let's go figure out who the bad guys are, and let's train them. So we pulled out, so the AI goes and figures out, and it pulls out the bad guys. It had an impact of 6%. And then it said, let's look at the upper quintile, the bad part of everybody else. It had an impact of 53%. So what it actually says is every one of us is largely good, but then we have a portion of our time where we become not as good. Fixing when I'm not as good, when I can be good, is much better than actually, much more impactful than actually taking out the ones that are always bad. If you begin to look at this, what you can see, what you can play out, and then you can make recommendations to the leader. So here's what it looks like. Here's what a leader does. Are you ready? A leader, literally, this is what, if you take anything they do, if you take communication, if you take decision making, if you're to begin to get into strategy planning, if you're going to get into team building, whatever you do as a leader, there's 4 fundamental, I'm going to call them skills, but it's the wrong term, but there's 4 components that sit underneath this. And this is coming from the leadership side of my life. Number 1 is insights. You glean information. You take it in. You pull it in. So I'm constantly attempting to take in information. But if you remember what I had said when I was in Tokyo, I figured out I forget a lot. Actually, I forget a heck of a lot. And I don't want to admit it, but I'm realizing I forget most of what I take in. I can't tell you exactly how many people are sitting in the front 2 rows. And I counted it about 10 minutes ago. I don't remember it. It's gone. But I'm taking in insights. So I forget things when I take in insights. In addition to that, I have a super high bias when I take things in. Okay? I may like your glasses, so my bias is positive for you. I may not like your glasses, so my bias is negative for you. I may not like your breath, the way it smells in the middle of the afternoon. Now, you may say that this is really superficial and you're kind of being a bad person here. Yeah, that's true. However, it's reality. We begin to do that. And then you may not be my best performer, so I don't spend very much time with you. So instead of spending 30 minutes every day because you're my really good performer and I spend 30 minutes every day with you, you're a bad performer, I spend 30 minutes every 3 weeks with you. And you get worse and worse and worse. And then the discussion I have with you is not how to help you get better earlier. The discussion I begin to have with you is actually how to fire you, how to get rid of you. And I'm biased. I'm limited. I have huge limitations. Frankly, AI doesn't have that limitation. The ability to take in insights, vast, you couldn't even put a number on it compared to what you can do with your own mind. There's not even a comparison. I wouldn't even try. The second thing, though, is once you take in the insights, you begin to make predictions. If I do this, what will happen? So if I address this, there's somebody that my company needs to have a hard discussion with, and her birthday's tomorrow. And her probation period ends tomorrow. I have all kinds of predictions going through my head, don't you? Do we talk today? Do we talk yesterday? We can't talk yesterday. Somebody was supposed to talk to her yesterday. So do we talk today? If we don't talk today, we're going to have the conversation on her birthday. Should we have the conversation on her birthday? What if we do this on, and they can begin to play this out really fast and see the complexity of what's going on in it. So we make predictions, but the issue is we make predictions on the limited insights we have and the limited components we have. Then we come to the judgment, the decision. So I have insights, I make a prediction, and then I make my judgment. I would argue this is where the human side of leadership should show up. We should be thinking machines learning, humans leading. Because there's some components in the judgment that the data doesn't know. It doesn't know everything. It just knows more than I do. I want you to catch that slowly. It doesn't know everything. It just knows more than you do, more than I do. So here's where we begin to come to play, because we do have some experiences. we do see from a different perspective. We know what's in our mind and what we're planning for next year. The data doesn't necessarily know that. We know what pressures our bosses are putting on us. We know some reads of what a market condition may be doing that we didn't put into it. So this is where the judgment comes to play. And then the final area that I would argue is largely on the human side is the execution. I don't really think a machine should go have with this girl a tough discussion tomorrow. I think a human should have that discussion. I don't really want to be fired one day by a computer. I don't really want to be managed by a computer. So begin to come to play, and these are the elements that come together when we look at that. So what we're really driving to is this. We're driving to helping leaders become and managers become the best they can. How many of you remember paper maps? Remember pulling out the big paper maps? Okay. We were always embarrassed to do that. Have you ever noticed it? Pulling out the paper was kind of like the sign of weakness. That I knew I needed the map. I knew I had no clue where I was. But pulling it out was as if I was admitting I don't know. Some of you are laughing about it. I can remember hearing my mom and dad argue in the car, okay? My mom would say, look at the map, and my dad would say, no, I know where we're going, as we drove in circles. But ironically, Google Maps is cool. We love it. I was in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and I was staying in a hotel 2.5 blocks from Salesforce Tower. And I was going to a meeting in Salesforce Tower. Salesforce Tower is the tallest building in San Francisco. Clearly the tallest building. If I want to know where it is, I could do this. I could look up. Instead, I looked down. Later in the day, one of the guys we were at the hotel, and I had a Phil's coffee. And he says to me, he goes, Phil's is great coffee. I said, yeah. I said, there's one around the corner from here. I got it this morning. Kind of the cup was still around. He goes, yeah, I go to that one regularly. He goes, I could use a coffee now. I said, great, let's go there and get it. Phil's actually is amazing coffee. So whoever, you need to go get the brand. That can be your race. But so we walk out of the hotel. I was there that morning. He says he goes there all the time. He reaches in his pocket, pulls out his phone, his Google Maps. I'm like, but we know where it is. Yeah, I know. Managers want that. They want the guide. They want the help. They want the direction in their day. But they're not about to pull out the paper map, figuratively. They're not going to go ask for it. They're not going to say, I don't know where I'm going to go. They're going to say, I know my way, as they drive in the circle over and over and over and over. And AI coming into play is actually here to help us become better. The relationship is man and machine, not man versus machine. Humans are always going to work. The question for you as you kind of go on, if you want to think about becoming future-proof, the question is, how are you going to use artificial intelligence to take advantage of the data that you have sitting available to you today to have a much better future than you're having today? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tommy, for the very useful presentation. Our next keynote address is by Katie Anketel. She's one of the world's top trend forecasters for retailers, retail technology, and product brands. Her work looks at the key shifts in consumer behavior, retail innovation, and technology, which provides confidence to senior business decision makers about where to innovate, adapt, and invest resources. Let's please all welcome Katie to the stage with a very big round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me. We just need to hook this laptop up. So while we're doing that, I will just give you a little bit of background on GDR Creative Intelligence. We're based in New York and London, and we've been going for 20 years, and we are consultants looking at how to future-proof retail, and we work with about 20 of the world's biggest global brands and retailers. So we do a lot of this public speaking, but we could only do this because of the actual real work that we do, solving our clients' problems, and everybody has the same problems, and this issue of artificial intelligence and how far to go with that and how fast is, of course, one of them. So very interesting talk there just prior. Are we up? Just need to switch over onto the other screen and then we're done. So I'm going to be talking about the international perspective, not necessarily from a specifically Middle Eastern point of view, but from our perspective of where we think global retail is going. So I hope that you will find that applicable to your specific situation. Of course, you do have specifics here. We were just talking previously in the interview. Of course, you have to have mall-based retail in a way here that isn't necessarily the case elsewhere because of the climate issues. So here we go, we're up and running. So I'm going to be talking about old retail being dead. We hear some terrible stories, particularly from America at the moment. We hear the word cataclysm a lot. They really hate that. But there is a definite inflection point happening, and we are seeing the end of one era and the beginning of a new era. So we're going to say, long live new retail. So these are some of the clients that we are retained by and have been for many years at the bottom of the screen there. So I'm going to be looking at how did we get here, this extraordinary situation where we have these horrendous and terrifying news headlines every day. Certainly where I come from, big chains that we've had for 100 years closing almost every week. What the future of retail looks like and where to find it, and the principles of new retail. Now I'm going to give you a hint. We're going to be looking at America as representative of the greatest retail market, the biggest retail market of the 20th century. And, spoiler, we're going to be looking at China as the representative of the greatest and largest retail market for the 21st century. So the principles of new retail are coming out of China. So we've had 20 years of significant change that has meant that our current models of retail in many parts of the world, possibly less so here, have been rendered obsolete. Not just by technology, but also by economic and social change. And of course, we all think about, these apps and similar technologies that have literally changed our lives. The oldest app here, or the oldest company represented on this slide, is only 24 years old, and that's Amazon. But it's almost laughable, isn't it, to think that we used to have to go to a library to find something out. And now, of course, we just have the device. The idea of having Wi-Fi on a plane, do you remember not that long ago, was magical, and we were so delighted. But then the pace of change is so fast that the second time you go on the plane, and you're then complaining about how slow that Wi-Fi is. So this is indicative of the way that consumer expectations have massively sped up. So we're so used to radical change coming from the Ubers and the Googles of the world that it's easy to forget that actually in a previous era it was retailers that were the big disruptors. Back in the 1960s, this was the French supermarket Carrefour. They caused a retail cataclysm for the mom and pop stores on the regular high street because they opened a hypermarket just outside of Paris in 1963. I mean, just outside, it was 20 kilometers out, so you had to have a car. This was the first big store predicated on the idea that most people at that point, 1963, had cars. Before that, they didn't. And this destroyed mom and pop retail all over the world. And everyone changed their retail model. They had to. This was extraordinary at the time, a revolution. It had 12 checkouts in one store. It had parking for 400 cars. This had never been seen before anywhere in the world. And it had petrol pump. Never seen that. So when we think about today's legacy retail, which tends to be large retail, you drive there, it's either in malls in town or it's out of town. That was basically the result of the Carrefour disruption in the 1960s. Everyone followed, and only recently, and probably mostly in the West, only recently has that started to tail off. Fewer malls are now being built, certainly in the West. And it's also, of course, coincided, this kind of latter tail end of that graph, with the rise of Amazon. Now, we all know this, just under 50%, 49% of all e-commerce sales in the US are made through Amazon. I mean, it is extraordinary that that is not an antitrust issue, I personally think, but they get away with it by saying we're only 5% of all retail, although we're 49.1% of all e-commerce retail in the US. So, of course, Amazon has been in the ascendant, but it's not Amazon's fault. It's a part of a whole big picture of which this plays a part. But you can understand why American retailers in particular are pretty unhappy about this kind of almost kind of sloppy journalism. It's a big headline, retail apocalypse, the world's going to, the dogs. It's all a disaster on every high street. We actually don't think you should believe everything you read. We don't think this is correct. Retail isn't dying. It's just changing in exactly the same sort of way that it changed in 1963, and that infected the whole world with the first ever hypermarket. And here is the CEO, who was at the time a new CEO for Carrefour, walking around that very same store outside Paris that they invented new retail. And he's saying, again, despite the fact we were the innovators, now we're in a stupor. We're over-centralized, over-complicated, disconnected from the customer and our roots. The hypermarket will survive, but I can't give any promises. This totally needs to be reinvented in the next 3 years, just paraphrasing. So retail has to be constantly reinvented. And actually, you could say that this chap, Andy Dunn, who's the founder of Bonobos, which he sold to Walmart, he knows a thing or two about how to reinvent retail, because his company, Bonobos, represents, like these others here on the screen, this new generation of digitally native, vertically integrated brands built by and within the 21st century and for the 21st century. So you probably have come across Casper mattresses, just taking the world by storm. Everlane, total transparency for basic fashion. They often obviously do cut out the middleman of retail, and therefore their prices are much lower. But he's got it. He says, we're in the first decade of a century-long shift where retail is reorganizing from the era of the car, 20th century, to the era of the smartphone, 21st century. And that's what these brands have been built for. The whole world is moving into cities, as you know. And when you ask people in cities, what would you rather give up, your car or your phone? Twice as many people are willing to give up their car. Young people are not even interested in owning cars anymore. They'll just Uber, or eventually they think, well, self-driving, that will take care of it. So the world is changing to orient around the smartphone and not around the motor car. So obviously our clients are always asking us, well, what do we do about this? What's next? What should I do with my formats? Should we have physical retail? What are the implications? And so we think we can look at how this will play out by looking at what's already happening in China. So this is a picture of Shanghai, I'm sure you're familiar. And let's go back to Carrefour, because being a French hypermarket that kicked off this whole retail revolution in the 60s, they're sort of, having another go at a significant revolution again by moving into China and partnering, in this case, with Tencent and JD.com. So obviously there's two. We'll come back to that between Alibaba and Tencent. So what's interesting for us is China has very few barriers to innovation, not always in a good way, because obviously they're not that keen on privacy or citizens' rights in some cases, but that does mean they have an open door for complete retail innovation. And therefore, they're fighting to build the future, not to defend a legacy past. And Carrefour have jumped on board. So if this is what their innovation looked like back in '63, 12 checkouts, people putting their shopping in the boot and driving home once a week, this is what it looks like now. They don't necessarily have to have checkouts at all. They have self-scanning through an app, and then you don't even have to carry your items home. They can deliver it home within an hour, or you can pay by face. And they've done a collaboration here with Tencent, which allows for an extremely experiential, but also seamless store environment. And we'll come back to that in a second. So why China? Why do we think China is the hub of the future of retail? It's a unique petri dish of innovation. The pace of change is unlike anything we've seen before in the West. In 1981, 88% of people were in poverty. In 2012, that was 6.5%. So never before have 500 million people been lifted out of poverty in such a short space of time. It's literally a new country. Here on the right is what this Pearl River Delta area looked like in 1980, and on the left, it's now become the world's biggest conurbation, bigger than Tokyo. What was tens of thousands a few years ago is now 10 million people in terms of city size. So it's the most enormous and growing consumer economy, and it's built around the smartphone, unlike anywhere else in the world. So look at their adoption of the smartphone for retail e-commerce. This is not people who've bought one thing in the last month. This is all e-commerce. 75% goes through the smartphone in China. In the US, that's still only about 21%, and that's relatively high for some Western countries. So it's all mobile. And they're doing something right because their use of artificial intelligence, their optimizing of inventory according to people's spending habits has contributed to Singles Day, which is their 11th of November, I'm single, so I should buy myself a present day, has been amassing twice as much as the US have sold in both Black Friday and Cyber Monday combined. So they're just wiping the floor with everybody else. And they don't just use their phones, obviously, to shop. They use their phones to pay, and the adoption is staggering compared to everywhere else. I mean, the UK, Europe, America, I'm not sure the figures here, but I suspect also quite a big difference for people using their mobile devices to pay. Even homeless people in China accept digital payments. And Ant Financial, which is obviously the Alibaba financial arm, set up in 2013 a fund for leftovers, for the coins and the small amounts of money you had left over in your Alibaba Alipay account. And within only 4 years, that has become the Earth's largest money market fund, bigger than JP Morgan in 4 years. This is the scale and the size. And the power, think of the application of artificial intelligence on all that data, which allows for optimization. And of course, you use your phones not just for buying and for paying, but you also use them for socializing. And we know, of course, that the majority of countries, 104 countries, are predominantly using WhatsApp for their social interactions. 65 countries are predominantly using Facebook Messenger. Only one country uses WeChat, and that's China. And it's still not that far behind the whole of the rest of the world. So there is full integration with everybody using the same channels. And so why has this happened? This has also happened because of human individuals and their very specific personalities. And the power of these two people, the Jack and Pony show, Jack Ma and Pony Ma, no relation, one owning Alibaba and the other owning Tencent, they represent a full-stack duopoly. So each of their companies provides everything the consumer needs, and they just go head-to-head in direct competition, and their innovation fuels each other to go to extra levels of pure retail innovation. So they started in technology, they both want to conquer retail. And on the left, Alibaba tends to do it by creating its own concepts, they build them themselves, and on the right, Tencent tends to do it through collaborations and partnerships, as you can see with Carrefour, for example. So what's interesting in terms of this AI business is that they have total visibility in China of people's data in a way that we don't, certainly in Europe and also America. And you'll have to tell me whether that's the case here or not. But essentially, they have access to the commercial data, the payment data, social data that's available, and open and civic data. And all of those data sets are combined together with the application of artificial intelligence to give them a God's eye view. So the total understanding of what every consumer is doing at all times because of access to their social media, their payment data, their GPS, and the absence of privacy laws that might prevent that. So there's no inertia in China. Even though it's now the world's biggest market, previously was America for retail, the top 100 retailers only account for 6.4% of total retail sales. I mean, that's tiny. And in America, that equivalent would be 40%. So there's no legacy business that you need to turn around. So what happens when you get the most sophisticated, consumer-focused data and technology companies that the world has ever seen, Alibaba and Tencent, moving into a retail landscape that's almost entirely just mom-and-pop stores. Nothing big that needs changing. Well, this is what you get. This is a small corner store that has had the Alibaba treatment. And I'm just going to play the video.
Step inside a modern mom-and-pop convenience store. This store is part of a new Alibaba initiative called Lingshou Tong, which translates to Retail Integrated in English. It aims to bring modern analytics and operations to a business that's often run by intuition. Huang Donghai runs Weijun Grocery Store with his son An. They've owned this grocery store for 8 years.
之前的话，我们觉得就是碰到的困难很多了，我们觉得跟不上这个时代了，需要这个转型升级。
Alibaba stepped in to offer the Huangs a suite of new services aimed at digitizing their business and boosting the bottom line.
The Huangs use the Lingshou Tong mobile app to order goods for their store. The app uses consumer analytics to create a list of the goods most likely to sell. With Lingshou Tong's help, they also added services like mobile and data top-up to their offerings, as well as cooked snacks. They no longer have to deal with multiple distributors. Instead, they order their inventory directly from Lingshou Tong. And the Huangs never have to worry about running out of stock because Lingshou Tong has both city and regional warehouses. If they need to restock fast-moving goods, the city warehouses will deliver it the next day. For less frequently bought items, the regional warehouses guarantee 2-day delivery. Brands benefit too. Mondelez, the owners of Oreos and Trident Gum, used consumer insights gathered in these stores to launch a single Oreo package that targets customers who want a quick, affordable snack. This process of going digital may seem daunting for a small business owner at first, but that's why Alibaba has brought in outside consultants, called City Partners, to aid with the transition. City Partners help install the back-end technology and educate store owners on how to use Lingshou Tong to fine-tune their merchandising, product display, and in-store promotion. City Partners earn a commission on merchandise purchased by store owners. The Huang's convenience store has gone from this to this. The Huangs have done so well that as a part of their Lingshou Tong upgrade, they chose to become a Tmall corner store. It's a special branded initiative that gives well-performing stores access to greater product selection, a point-of-sale system with integrated inventory tracking, in-store digital advertising, and some pretty cool LED signage. There's even a shelf of goods that targets the demographics of consumers that live in the immediate area.
他们这个天猫小店这个项目，主要是为了改造，他们提供给我们一些我们平时可能做不到的服务，就比如说像一些我们可能接触不到的一些厂商，或者是一些新的技术。
So note that shelf where they had items that were optimized for the local population. We're going to come back to that again and again. So this is Jack Ma saying, pure e-commerce will be reduced to a traditional business and replaced by the concept of new retail. This is where we get the phrase. The integration of online, offline, logistics and data across a single value chain. So he does not want to be just an e-commerce site. He really sees the future of retail as full integration between physical and digital. Lots of people over the years have asked me, do you think physical retail will survive in the future? Although never a female, I must admit, because I've always thought women know that there will be physical retail. But interesting that Jack Ma has answered that question in the same way that I would. So if we look at the old retail model, just making it really basic, the old market of retail was where demand met supply. And retail generally determined shopper behaviors because it didn't offer very many options. It had fixed formats, fixed channels, and fairly uniform experiences. Maybe there were 2 or 3 different kinds of models. And therefore, it fixed its operation to achieve economies of scale. But the new retail is more like this. It's a totally fragmented picture. Our consumer base has fragmented. People are not one big middle class anymore. And so the market has had to fragment. Retail has responded to shopper behaviors being far more varied. People want different things in different places at different times. And therefore, what we're calling that is now everywhere retail. Wherever you have a phone, you're capable of engaging in retail activities. And so we now have to have innovation-focused retail supporting constant experimentation and risk. So new retail is totally customer experience oriented. I know you knew that, but you can't say it often enough. It's seamless, omnipresent, and reflexive, meaning it constantly iterates itself in order to try new things and find appropriate models. It can also be fun when you want it to be, or hyper-efficient when you don't, or both at the same time, which is not something we've seen outside of China very often. This is 7 Fresh, which is the 10-cent version of Hummer. These are the 2 grocery stores going head-to-head. And as you can see, they have some pretty interesting innovations. They have a shopping trolley that follows you around based on your having synced your phone with it, and you also wear a wristband. Or you could follow it if you want it to optimize your shopping list and where items could be found. Everything in this store can be purchased through your mobile device, through the app. You don't ever need to check out. Everything is also optimized for the people that live in this area, and half the people shopping there are not physically going to the store. They're ordering online and having items delivered home. So it's also a warehouse. It's a delivery hub for those people buying at home. As you can see, you can pay by scanning your face. Every item you pick up has information on a screen above, giving provenance. You can see these corridors along the ceiling carrying the items that are either going to the kitchen or which are going for home delivery. And this will only deliver to people within a 3-mile radius. So it's fully optimized for its local population. And as you can see, it's the fun version of retail because you're picking lobsters out of a tank and you're having them sent to the kitchen, and then you wait for your lobster that you chose to cook. So it's both extraordinarily seamless and very entertaining. So just to look at some of the trends in new retail that we're seeing in China, we're going to look at some intelligent, local, and fast concepts, some social and entertaining concepts, and some theatrical automation. So, new retail means using online data to merchandise and configure stores so that they reflect those local circumstances, as we mentioned before. This is Alibaba's Home Times. It's a homewares store, a bit like an IKEA, but it has only select items physically in the store which you could buy at that moment. Many things, obviously, that you can choose through screens and have them delivered home in an hour, but everything that's in the store is optimized according to online search of people living within a 5-mile radius. So they know that's what the local people are likely to want to buy when they come in. New retail brings retail to the point of need with intelligent micro formats, creating these fragmented and hyper-tailored propositions. We're seeing throughout China the many of these concepts on the left, which are unstaffed. You pay for everything with your app. You let yourself in with the app, let yourself out with the app. They are coming to the West, certainly by next year. It'll be interesting to know when they hit this part of the world. And on the right, I think even more interestingly, this is an office space. It's a place where people want to buy snacks at 4 PM. And you'll see that there's a little store there. There's no vending machine, it's just shelves. The technology allows them that once you pick something off the shelf, you are paying for it via cameras and face recognition and so on. So that's also extremely flexible. Now, this is a prototype, but we see this kind of concept now all over the world. So they're kind of bubbling up and they're ready to launch soon. This one is unstaffed, no driver, but obviously at the moment it would have to have a driver.
Hello Miranda, welcome back.
So the idea is that this self-driving store, you call it via your mobile phone, you have the app, it comes to you in the middle of the night, you buy your milk or whatever, and it knows obviously what's being purchased. It goes back to the hypermarket 5 times a night if necessary and restocks, and then basically finds its way around university campuses or business parks or local communities. I don't think they anticipate it going on the motorway. But anyway, we're seeing this also in other countries for things like fresh food, because people obviously want to choose their own fresh food. And of course, when you're talking about Alibaba, you need to think about delivery innovation, because not everybody has a easy delivery point in their building. And this is a Kaneo, a smart locker concept that Alibaba is currently trialing.
您好，您的快递。
So note it's telescopic, depending on the size of the item going in, and also temperature controlled. So you can chill it if your groceries arrived, or you can heat it if your pizza has arrived. Just a prototype, but hey, this is Alibaba, so they're putting some serious effort into it. And I think it's, if any of these things are likely to succeed, something funded by Alibaba is. So, looking at social and entertaining, new retail innovators are reinventing shopping as even more of a leisure activity, finding new ways to install retail into playtime. Now, this is Alibaba's Tmall, and this is for their 11/11, their Singles Day promotion. And what they do is provide gaming so that once you're in their app, you're incentivized, for example, to have your friends buy things together and jointly pay, and you get special kind of rewards and so on for doing that. It will also even encourage people to put money into the system before they know what they want to buy themselves on Singles Day, but with a possibility of effectively gambling that that money will massively multiply, because 1 in 10 people, for example, will see their $100 times by 10, and then they can choose what they want to spend the money on. So these games are extremely compelling, as you can imagine. And Shop Shops is my personal favorite. This is an app that has been established by somebody in America who is Chinese, and then she employs Chinese young women who live in America who are bilingual, and they go to stores like Tory Burch or J. Crew, just regular stores, but also independents, in the 2 hours before they open in America, because that's a good time for Chinese people at home to be shopping. And effectively, this is live streaming QVC. So she goes, the young lady, usually between 25 and 35 years old. She may be an artist or a stylist or very interested in fashion. She goes to these stores, and the people at home feel as though they're experiencing the store. They walk around, she's touching and feeling the product, she's putting items on. You're probably following somebody that you have the same size and a similar taste. She's interviewing the owners of the store, and everything she's looking at has been pre-programmed into the shopping channel so that you can purchase it directly from the screen. So it's live streamed, QVC, but very experiential and bilingual. Taobao, again, an Alibaba website, has identified that most young people like to engage with social media. Typically, they do it before they go to bed, between, say, 10 and 11 p.m. So they've created a series of very high-quality little dramas that might be a 5-minute long drama about men in the military, for example, and they're vertical so that they fit the mobile phone screen. And then at the end of that little video about men training to be in the military, you'll see an advert for a wok that one of those men is eating his dinner out of. And it's quite an indistinct link sometimes between the product that's being advertised, but as you can see, the amazing product sales, 50 times more sales as a result of people watching these little social webisodes. So webisodes are a huge thing. So new retail is not just about efficiency and technology, it's also about magic and wonder and fun. So it's also can be low tech. In China, we're seeing the world's most amazing bookshops. You know, an area of potential decline pretty much everywhere else. But here, they're investing in this whimsical, extraordinary concept. Zhonghu, all of these bookstores look different, but they have a similarity that when you go in, they're usually light and bright and often have mist so that these floating books look magical. And then the second area you go into is always dark. It's too dark for you to actually read the book, but the idea is you pick items up and have to take them into the next area in order to actually peruse them. And the third area is always absolutely extraordinary. And these are places you'd just want to spend a week because they're just so sensorially engaging. So China is doing amazing things with physical interior design as well as technology. And this is JD.com with their Luxury Express. They found that when people bought an expensive luxury item like a watch from their kind of luxury division, then they obviously enjoyed the free delivery that came with it from a man in white gloves, tuxedo, and a proper car, or van, not on a motorbike. But what they're finding is that people buying non-luxury goods are willing to pay extra to have this service because it may be for a gift, it may be reassuring that the item is genuine, and this is not about seamlessness. This is about making people feel special. It's about a charming service, delivering in that last mile in a way that is going to bring a smile to your face. So onto some theatrical automation, and we are seeing a lot of this. It may not all roll out across the world. They know that, and we know that. But they're throwing a lot of innovation at the theatricality of their automation, and the advantage for the rest of us in the rest of the world is we can observe what works and borrow from that and leave behind the things that don't work. So this is Hema, which is the Alibaba version of the 7 Fresh grocery store we saw earlier. And they're, as I say, just head-to-head with their innovation. And this is their restaurant. And again, everything in the restaurant is ordered via your app, so it's all totally mobile phone operated. So isn't it interesting that only 5 years ago, Alibaba visited Ocado in Britain and looked at their use of robotics, and then they visited Italy in America, the Italian delicatessen concept, and from those 2 ideas, they drew inspiration and came up with Hema. So these things happen very fast, only 5 years, and they are potentially having a massive impact now on the rest of the retail industry, I would argue. So, not surprisingly, this is not going to remain in China. Both Alibaba and Tencent are doing many partnerships and collaborations with brands outside of China, as we can see here. And interestingly also, the American president of Alibaba says that we are very different from Amazon. Amazon obviously gets a bad rap in America for not helping out local retailers very much. Quite the opposite, in fact. He says, we create the infrastructure and technology of commerce to make it possible for millions of small businesses to participate successfully in global trade. We're doing our business on a far greater scale and in an inclusive manner, hence their operations to work with the mom and pop stores that we saw earlier. Now, he would say that, wouldn't he? I'm not an apologist for Alibaba, but it's interesting that they take quite a different position to Amazon as we see in the West. So, of course, these 2 are the looming arms race in the old world of the US, and we can see that they are also doing their collaborations, and you have Souk here for delivery in the Middle East with Amazon. But I thought I'd just look at a few of the collaborations that Walmart are doing because we think they're particularly interesting. Now, of course, this was Carrefour in 1963. Walmart did not get its act together to create its first hypermarket until 1988. So it took quite a while for it to filter down into the American Walmart store. But what's interesting to us now is that Walmart is massively ramping up its changing the way it perceives itself even, dropping the name stores, because it's not just about stores anymore, of course. In many cases, it's about non-store-based concepts. It's using robotics, and these are the Bossa Nova robots that I'm sure you're familiar with, for things like stock checking and checking everything's in the right position. The idea is that this is a boring thing for human beings to do. Let's free them from this part of their labor and free them up to do something that's more interactive and human. They've changed their website quite significantly, walmart.com. It's now much more socially led, much more contextual. It's using content-led marketing, and it uses smart algorithms to understand what people near you, this location, are what's trending for those people. So it's not just items on a white background for pure seamlessness, which you tend to get with other sites. And it's trialing all of these new micro formats, these fragmented concepts that we saw earlier on that slide. This is fuel and convenience store. I mean, think Walmart is usually huge. It's a pilot high and sell it cheap type concept. But here is a tiny little convenience drive-through Walmart. And here's another unstaffed drive-through, 24-hour Walmart, where you've ordered online and then you've received a PIN number and you just drive through and there's all refrigerated interior workings, and effectively it spits out as a vending machine your shopping for you to drive away with. It's trialing the use of home delivery so that when you're not in, but you have a smart lock, then their delivery drivers can let themselves into your home and place the items in your store cupboard or your refrigerators, and they've obviously done checks against these people to make sure they're not going to steal anything on the way out. It's a new area, but it's something that's spreading across the world. And also, rather surprisingly, because, as I say, Walmart has been pilot high, sell it cheap, it has usually ignored your middle classes, but no longer. It's recognizing that it must fragment its offer and also look more at the higher net worth individuals, in this case, young mothers in Manhattan, who are willing to spend $49 a month on a subscription service called Jet Black, which is based on anything you need for your kids. You send a text in and they deliver it to you.
No one can tell us why we're young and full of life. We gotta do it right. Woo, woo.
Hey, Jay, we need a birthday gift for a 5-year-old who loves puzzles.
Consider it solved, gift wrapped, and delivered.
Me and all my friends, oh!
Hey, Jay, wipes, diapers, and pull-ups.
Got it. Baby Ganix wipes, Honest Company diapers, size 2, and Pampers training pants.
So if even Walmart is offering high-quality concierge services, think about what luxury will need to offer to its customer of the future. I think we may have just lost our last couple of slides. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's just the conclusions. Oh, here we go. So just to conclude, the takeouts. We think that you have to embrace change. I know we would say that because we're in the industry of change, but I hope I've convinced you that you do need to be looking at formats, constant change and fragmentation of those formats, new propositions, new technology, and understanding that behaviors are changing at a very radical speed. That you need to use technology not just to sort of tweak and change the models that you've got, but to actually come up with totally new models, like, for example, the Walmart vending building where you just drive through when you bought online. And that retail's future is bright and up for grabs, and we don't think you should be in any way pessimistic. It's super exciting, and it just requires us to adapt as retail did in the 1960s. And that's me done. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Katie. A very, very interesting presentation. I want to welcome on the stage David McAdam. He's going to be speaking about Jeddah Chamber of Commerce. Please welcome David onto the stage.
Thank you, Rania. I think, first of all, I can say that I'm very pleased to have some very special guests with us today in the audience. And I think what I think is important from the message that I would like to convey is that Dr. Tommy Weir's speech was very insightful about what's going on. That's the caliber and what we like to do to bring awareness. And Kate's presentation just now, her delivery to bring awareness of what's really going on out there in the world today in the retail. And that is our role in the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers. We have a special guest with us, His Excellency Secretary General of the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Hassan Dahan. Thank you. Please stand up so everyone can see you. Thank you. And the reason that Mr. Hassan is with us today is because he's inviting us, our organization, the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers, to hold another forum, another conference, a RECON forum in Jeddah early next year. And we look forward to doing that. And I want all of our people in the room here and all of our Saudi nationals who are here in the room to know that we care about what happens in the retail world in Saudi, and we know that we can make a difference and help bring people together, and we have not forgotten about you, and I think this is a big step. I would like Wael Bakr, please, to stand up. Wael as well. Wael is... Thank you. I mentioned earlier that Wael has done an outstanding job for our last event that we hosted in Jeddah, and Wael was instrumental, of course, in bringing Mr. Hassan to us today. So, Wael, you're the president of the Shopping Center Committee in the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce. We truly value your contribution. More importantly, we're really looking forward to working with you as a board member of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers, effective this afternoon. So get ready. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, David. We'll now move to our first panel titled How Digital Innovation Leads Retail. Retailers and shopping center owners, management, and retail professionals must be aware of the latest technology available in the market today and how to win market share with this transformation. We are going to have the panelists that are going to answer your question in an interactive Q&A session. I'd like to invite our first panelist onto the stage. We've got George Kasparis as Regional Director. He is in charge of the growth of Shopper Track Dubai office, which encompasses the Middle East, India, and Africa. With over 11 years' experience in the region, he has followed its growth and built key relationships, helping shopping centers and retailers optimize their shopping experience and improve profitability through data-driven insights. Let's give him a very big round of applause. Our next speaker, we have David Wee, chairman of A-Buzz. David has a wide entrepreneurial experience developing medical centers, hospitals, medical software, educational organizations, hotel and commercial property development. Let's welcome David onto the stage. Our next panelist is Ben Chesser, and he's the CEO and founder of Conic, one of the world's leading provider of CRM and loyalty solutions for retail destinations. Ben has over 15 years of loyalty experience. Welcome, Ben. And our final panelist, Mr. Damirhan Biukuzuju. Am I pronouncing your family name correct? Right. He is the co-founder and CEO of vCount, the global technological leader of visitor analytics solution. And he has also developed computer vision and machine learning solutions for retail, military, security, and automation industries over the course of 13 years. Welcome, please, all our panelists and our fantastic moderator.
Well, thanks, first of all, for our panelists to take their time. You may notice on the slide there's Saeed Haider from Yardi. He was also going to join us today, but
wasn't me.
He was waylaid a little bit at the traffic, so we apologize, but he will not be joining the panel today. But the rest of our panelists are experts in their field, and I think the reason why we have these gentlemen on stage is because for the overall theme of this conference, in case anybody's missing it, is future-proof retail. And future-proof retail means all about embracing change, first of all. I know Kate said that, I'll say it, embracing change is important. Dr. Tommy in his speech, embracing change. The other speakers that we had yesterday, David Meerman-Scott, certainly embracing change. And also when we heard from the other speakers, it's all about that. So let's begin with some question and answers, and then we'll open it to the audience so that you'll be able to pick their brains. First of all, it's not often that you get this level of competence on the stage, so you're wide open to start picking their brains about what you can do with each of them and their businesses. So let me just look at some of the questions that we've had. So since the early days of intensive data collection in retail, which I think began about 10 years ago. But right now, when I think about back 10 years ago, it was quite rudimentary in terms of what we are actually retaining. And when I look at what's going on today, what is the fundamental change that you see in the use of data since then? Let's start with you, George.
Hi, everyone. I think over the last 10 years, it has to be the cloud. Cloud-based solutions, the development of the cloud, and the acceptance of the cloud has been massive. I think even if you talk from a personal experience, everyone in this room can relate to something about the cloud where they've at one point thought, what is this coming onto my mobile device? And before you know it, you're subscribed to 10 dirhams a month to store all your photos up in the cloud. So as far as data collection, data storage, accessibility, and what it's done for businesses like ours and retailers, cloud storage is the present and the future.
Okay.
Well, I think the attitude has big change. We've been gathering data for 15 years.
Yes.
And a lot of times the retailers thought that data and e-commerce and internet was the enemy. It was about brick versus click. And so a lot of times they just didn't want us to even mention data. They just wanted to service. Now they realize that it is brick and click. You have to have a complete system. It's an integrated system. You're looking at space as a facility, as a venue, someplace to enjoy, to give experiences. So now they need data, and they're just only working up to it for a few years ago. They need to know who's coming into the malls, what they're asking for, what the customer profiles are, what facilities are they looking for, like if there's things that they don't have there, comparing that with other malls around the world. So now we're looking at the whole global aspect of data. You can find out what's happening in America, China, Australia, and you have access to it at your fingertips right now.
So it's more global, is what you're
By
saying.
far more global.
Ben, what's your thought?
Hello again, everybody. I think building on, well, probably both of those really, but particularly on what George said, I think there's been a big shift from active data collection. So in the past, a consumer would know that the data is being collected. They would collect a stamp or they would show a loyalty card, to a world of passive data collection where there's just so much data available that we can get our hands on. We can analyze social media behavior or online behavior, or what food you eat, what you order from your supermarket, how often. So there's a huge amount of data we can get on consumers without them even knowing about it. And actually, I think that's the next problem, is then there's some legal issues there. Like,
yes.
We can get so much information about you. We can know more about you than you know about you, which is slightly worrying. So how do we police that? And then also building on what Tommy said earlier, then how do you process that data? You don't do it by looking at graphs.
Right.
So there's this rapid change in the volume of data we can get and the permission to get that data.
Okay, good point. Okay, Demirhan, what's your point?
We see the data collection evolution in 4 stages. I think the first stage was the evolution of people counting, starting from the beam sensors, then terminals, then the stereo vision cameras that now reach to 98%. I think the second stage was the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, like getting Wi-Fi signals and sending push notifications. That was the important stage. I think in the third and fourth stage now coming is the mood age gender recognition, that you can understand the demographics and then you can understand even the emotions. And in the fourth level now, there are available technologies now. We can track the people from start to the end of their whole journey. So I think this third and fourth revolution is much more stronger because it delivers you psychological underlying features of the customers.
Okay, appreciate that. So, from my perspective, I'm always learning, and I appreciate always being able to learn. But let's start with George on this question. How does your company address what you're talking about with the cloud, for instance?
Well, so ShopperTrack for some time now have been a cloud-based solution only. Okay, so you know, we made the move away from what we consider an on-prem device, an on-prem system, and that means, I mean, even up until fairly recently, we've still been pulling out some base stations from shopping centers, right? So that's the older way of storing data, where you have this, you know, this computer, and by providing a cloud-based solution, it's making you know, remedies to issues. It's giving you access to real-time data. You know, if we have an issue with any particular system, or you know, we want to drill down into something within one of our centers, within one of our customers, it's accessible within seconds. You know, and it's also visible to the customer within seconds. You know, so
the cloud is key then.
The cloud, you know, but for us, that's where we've driven the business. Because, like I said, it's the present, it's the future, it's where we, you know, we need to go.
David, tell me how your business, your company addresses what you were just highlighting in the last statement.
Okay, well, again, we've always been in the cloud, and we've got, say, 160 malls around the world, so we run the whole thing by the cloud. In terms of, it's about the journey. You're talking about the whole journey from the start, from when you wake up in the morning, decide what you're going to do, what you want to buy, going, you know, looking at your phone, talking to your wife, sharing things with your friends on Facebook, working out what you're going to do. And then we try to facilitate that. So we work with partners like people on the panel here, because we can't do it all ourselves. It's about cooperation. So we can then track and guide people to your shopping center for your activities. So they have a choice. So that they need information. Information is key to everything. You know, and that's your obligation as well, to make sure you give your customers the best experience. So where they park the car, how close it is to where the shop's going to go, what things can they do, and then guide them straight to them and advertise to them, so that they have a really good picture of the type of meals they want, the type of clothes they have, and have a really good quality interaction with your client. And that's what a buzz does. A buzz is obviously a screen that can actually interact and give you that really high quality visuals.
Okay. Ben, tell me about yours. Well, you suggested a few things, and I could go back and ask, but tell me, about how your company differentiates, or what your role differentiates from the rest.
Okay, so at Conic, we're essentially running CRM and loyalty programs for malls. So the goal there is to identify the highest value shoppers and improve and personalize the experience for them. That's our goal. The journey we've gone on is, I would say 5 years ago, it was about someone showing something or someone interacting at the POS. Probably only in the last 18 months, we've really opened up to get data from other sources. So not yet from ShopperTrack, but hopefully.
So this is what you were speaking about. Do we want to go to that next leap? Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, it's realizing that you can ask people to tell you what they want and get preferences. That's great. But also you can get data about them without having to ask them, without knowing. So it's only the last 12 months we've started doing that. And then the last 6 months, we're using machine learning to segment people. Really early days. We've gone from marketeers sitting in a room defining 25 segments to letting a machine have a look at it, and the machine can identify the segments. It's very exciting, but very early days.
But there's a lot of learning to go with your business, I'm sure, too, all of that.
There is, but the challenge is, can we keep up with the world? The world's moving really, really fast in this area, so we're trying to keep up with it and stay ahead of the game.
Demirhan, tell me about how your business, how you are approaching what you were suggesting earlier.
I think one of the new trends and one of the most important things we are trying to do is tracking the people from start to end through all their journey and understanding the meaning out of it. Before now, we have been just guessing and making small assumptions, how many people are spending time on this special zone or this special zone, but now it's knowing the all interactions and getting out of meaning out of this, merchandisers can do a much more personalized brand experience to them. Also, where we are trying to go is the recommendation engine with AI. So right now, our analytics started to give small recommendations about what the store manager should do or what the regional manager should do. Now we are trying to head the full company direction to there and totally be an assistant to the digital assistant to all the managers. That's what we are trying to do now.
When I'm hearing this, and I'm not necessarily the most technical guy, given my age and stage, whatever, but I'm thinking there's a lot of investment that has to go into all of this. And how do you keep up with the investment? Where do you go? Who do you get to help you focus on that? How big are your teams? I've asked a million questions right there, but I've left you wide open for the floor. Let's start with you, David. What are you thinking? Any of those questions have resonance?
Boy. Well, that's the whole point. What you have today is not what you're going to have tomorrow. It really is a starting point. You just have to, in terms of your shopping centers, work out your plan, have a starting point. There's a lot of fantastic technology out there, but unless you start to do something, you'll never start. Basically, the first journey is the first step. So please look at your investment strategy. It doesn't have to be that huge, but to understand you do need to have a complete plan going for the future. On our side, well, because we have such a large base, our R&D department is
yes,
a third
you
of
have
our...
160
yeah.
shopping centers.
Yes,
You've
that's
got a
right,
fairly
right.
nice base to work on.
So that's the whole point. And by the way, a big point is we actually work with a lot of other developers and other people, suppliers, because we know that we can't do everything for everybody, and there's always going to be great technology around the world, and also great customer relationships. It's not always about the best technology. It's also about how well you serve your customer, how well they know each other.
There's more of a human side to it as well, is what you're speaking about?
It is 100% human. The technology is one thing, but it's all about the person-to-person relationships, how we can look after the shopping mall owners to make sure they have the best solutions.
So Tommy Weir was talking about the fact that artificial intelligence is not going to replace everybody, but it's going to help us identify perhaps people that could be replaced, or if they're not pulling their weight, how to get along with it. How much AI, artificial intelligence, do each of your firms incorporate? So let's start with you, Ben, on that.
The honest truth is not much. It's quite easy to put it on a slide. It's actually quite hard to do. So we're beginning with machine learning, which is one stage behind.
Yes.
So getting the machines to start understanding the structure of the data and what the patterns they can see. I think AI could go a huge way further to helping a business like mine, but it's early days. I think what we're also seeing is, I think there's two challenges ahead of that. One is the organizations themselves. So the biggest thing I think the companies can do is understand where this fits in their organization. Is it marketing? Is it IT? Is it customer experience? And I think a little tip to everyone is if you can create one person or one department in charge of the customer experience on your mall, that's a huge step forward.
It is huge.
Most people aren't doing that yet. We work with Westfield, Unibail, and Amco, and Value Retail. They're not doing it yet. They're beginning to do it.
So what is it going to take for them to start adopting that? I mean, that to me would be the linchpin of your whole business. How would you get them to start opening their eyes, so to speak?
I think they've got the budgets. I think the step now is someone that owns it, a department that owns that customer experience and can pull together bits of marketing, bits of footfall counting, bits of IT, and create the best customer experience. And then pretty quickly the AI bit follows. It's getting the data in one place and getting ownership of it, and then you can start applying AI.
Okay. Demerhan, what's your thought on all of this in terms of artificial intelligence in the future? I mean, you've got a terrific background and education in technical fields. Where is it going?
I think it's going to be like small assistant to to different different managers. So right now we are seeing small applications. People are starting to believe that AI is more optimized, AI-based results is more optimized than the classical ways. But after they see real implications in real applications, I think they're going to believe it more. Eventually, the results AI bring are much more optimized and much faster, but you have a very big data about this. So first modeling the AI, then collecting the data. If you have lots of data in the past, like if you have lots of customers globally for years, it's a very big advantage. And I think people are starting to believe with the real small applications, they believe in AI, and they're going to invest more, and they're going to see a huge more outcome out of this.
Okay. George, let me go back to some of my other questions here. Chief information officers are now at the front and center in the retail industry in terms of contact, and I'm sure if you were a CIO, as they're called, you're probably uncomfortable going into work every day because everything's changing so fast. So how do you draw a line in the sand in all of this and say, okay, here's what's important if I'm the CIO, and here's what's not important, and here's where I think things are going? I know there's a lot of questions there too.
Yeah.
I'm giving you latitude to think about CIOs. That's what I'm...
Well, I think CIOs have definitely got the kind of sharp end of the stick at the moment. The technology industry is driving so fast. It's so far ahead. There's always something new to talk about. There's always new buzzwords. And I mean, I personally feel CIOs, one of their biggest challenges they have at the moment is actually influencing or changing a culture within an organization. So what does that mean? You have a CIO at the top who's challenged with looking for the right information, looking for the right business needs, and then going through that process to get it. But if there's 3,000 employees below him, right down to the shop floor, how much of what he's choosing, what he's selecting, is being interpreted to the shop floor, which ultimately is going to deliver the service, and deliver the sales. So, I call it a culture, because it's something I've been through myself in one of my previous employments, where they went through a huge service culture change. And I think organizations need to look closely at that, because it doesn't matter what's been decided or chosen at the top level. If it's not being driven and given to the consumer, what's the point?
Ben, give me your feeling on that.
I tend to agree, actually. I think the challenge is often internal organizational change, making sure that the organization...
So it has to start at the top, and then it has to be integrated all the way through?
Yeah.
And is it being done, I guess is the question. When you're dealing with CIOs, do you get the sense that they're empowered, or are they just line guys?
No, they're definitely empowered. I think the balance of power is shifting in their direction.
Is it? Okay. That's a good
what
thing.
we're seeing. Absolutely. Yeah. They need to make sure that there's an organization underneath them that can leverage and take advantage of the fantastic technology they're putting in place. And I agree, often it doesn't go far enough down the organization. And then in this room, we've got another problem, that we don't touch the consumer. The brands in the malls touch the consumer, or much more. So you've got to make sure it goes right through that layer to actually improve the customer experience. Otherwise,
how do you do that, though? How can we enable that?
So I think the biggest trend we're seeing is a desire to share information. So in its early days, again, in this region, I think we're a step behind some of the other regions, particularly in Europe, of the brands realizing that if they share with each other and they share with the landlord, you create a much richer shopping experience. If they hunker down and hold it in silos, then it's not going to work.
You know, I've been in the region now for 15 years, and when I first came in early '04, the thought of sharing information in this region was probably not part of the conversation you wanted to have. How has that changed, Demerhan?
I agree as well. 10 years ago, the Forbes top 10 companies was petroleum companies and banking companies. Now we all see technology companies in the top 10. So even if you're a retailer or what kind of a company, you have to become a technology company. Software is eating the world and it's unavoidable. So the CIOs are really getting empowered. They are in the center of the organization now, and everybody's requesting something from inside and outside. All the divisions are asking lots of data, like we need this to analyze data. So they need to perform and they have to deliver for their internal organizations as well. So I think the data sharing is very important. They have to persuade their internal organization about data sharing with the third-party companies or throughout other companies, so it can be much more useful data, just like I told in the machine learning. Also, they have to find a reliable partner that can go with the long term. So they cannot do this on their own. Just like the previous questions, there's this Wi-Fi coming, mood, age, gender coming, full pet tracking. Like they cannot learn it all.
Sounds complicated to me.
They cannot learn it all. So they have to find these reliable partners that with the vision, so they can get along for.
Is that where you at this panel come to? I mean, is that outsourced? Because how can you be up to speed? I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, there's no way I could pay for this, the kind of brain power you need to be keeping up with all of this. So is that, I'm going in the right direction here. So that's why you're on the stage today. Okay, makes sense. So if there's one main point you wanted to get across today about what it is that this industry is going to, and thinking about the future proof of the retail and what your business provides. Once again, I'm going on and on and on, but I'm trying to leave you lots of latitude to start thinking about how you can tell the audience about what's different, what you can do. George? David?
Well, there you go.
All right.
Ben? Demerhan? I mean, jump in. I don't mean to stump the panel, but...
If you don't mind, I'll start off here, right? I think with the title being future-proofing retail, okay, we've already heard, some great speakers so far, giving us some their views and opinions of what's happening, and it's all, I believe it's all following one common theme, and that is that future-proofing retail is about making it a frictionless transaction for the consumer, okay? And I think David Meerman-Scott yesterday, really enjoyed his speech. And he was talking about his, booking his trip to the Antarctic.
Yes, that was interesting.
And you probably picked up on, all the slides before he chose his supplier, his vendor. All of the hurdles that he had in that process. So that's friction, right? So whether it's in brick and mortar, whether it's on e-commerce, whether it's being able to create that frictionless environment and turning the retail store or online into more of a relationship as opposed to a transactional environment, I think is the future. And if I can mention a name, I think somebody who's doing that already very well would be Carrefour. And sorry to separate.
No, that's quite all right.
It's already been mentioned.
We need to find out who's leading in the industry.
I've got a personal experience with that where I, in particular, enjoy walking through Carrefour. I know there might be a bit of a shock there, but I enjoy the experience of walking around, and I go in on Friday morning, I have my Arabic coffee with the dates. I love it, right? My wife, not so much, because normally she's dragging the kids with her, and, so Carrefour, I believe, have done a great job in providing their e-commerce service now, where my wife, if she decides she's not going to shop on a Friday morning, it's done online. And that process is frictionless. She does it within 10 minutes, and it's delivered, if not that afternoon.
Where's our chairman, Yunus Al-Mula, who's heading up in the Carrefour operations? Anyway, I'll pass along your regards.
But that's just a personal experience of where I believe.
But that's frictionless.
Frictionless is my buzzword.
Demerhan, what do you think?
I think retail is shifting mostly to online, and retail stores are going to be mostly experience stores that people discover, enjoy the brands, collaborate, socialize, and mostly all of the sales and the transportation is going to turn to online. So I think the key takeaway will be if we don't think of a website, and on a website, think of a website that you don't count the people or you don't analyze the activity of the people, what they are doing, how long they are spending time, from which page to which page they are going. In the physical world, we are like this right now. So I cannot think of a feature that all the physical space, including retails, will be totally monitored in a way that we have to understand the psychology of the people to the deepest levels. So I think the key takeaway will be the businesses that do not analyze the visitor activity will lose, and the ones who will really understand this activity, try to work hard to understand this activity, will be the winners.
Ben, tell me what you're thinking about all of this.
I'm sort of agreeing, but I think there's two levels. There's the theoretical, what we should be thinking about, and there's what are we actually doing level.
Yes.
And I'm going to focus more on the second. I think we can put up slides saying that we can predict if you've gone for a run because we know your Fitbit says you're going to need a drink at the end of it. We can send you a drink to your house. That's all easy to put up there. I think the winners are the people that just do it, that don't sit back and think for 18 months about the strategy and design the most perfect system by which time it's out of date.
Right.
The ones that we love working with and that I think are going to win are much quicker to innovate and test and learn. And if it doesn't work, move on. And the beautiful thing in the digital world is it's not that expensive to test stuff.
Yeah.
And move on. So I think what I'd like to see is more rapid innovation, rapid testing, and generally sharing stuff with each other, because I think as was said before, the challenge isn't necessarily mall A versus mall B. No, the challenge is mall A and B versus Alibaba in inverted commas versus the internet.
Yeah. Okay. David?
Of course, I agree with everything the panel says. You know, it's all about frictionless shopping. It's about really improving the whole customer experience. And it's not just about buying things, it's about having things and about working in co-working spaces. But the big point I want to make is cooperation. I think, you know, in the Middle East, you have fantastic retailers, you have fantastic software providers and solution providers. And the way to be future-proof is basically make sure that you have a flexibility so you can choose and pick and choose what you want to do and adapt. And ask and work with your suppliers and say, this is what I want trying to do. Do you have some advice? And look at that cooperative solution. If you're open and cooperative, you will always be future-proof.
Thank you. That's well put. I want to go now and talk a little bit more about the retailers. And I know we spoke a little bit about frictionless with George and Carrefour, but let me ask the panel there, how can retailers use data and analytics to stand out and support the personalization and building of their own brand? Because without your brand, I mean, what do you have? You've just got more products. So how do you do that? Let's start with you, Demirhan.
We are doing two things for this. I think one is with the advertisement part and one is with the analytics part. So with the new Mood 8 gender recognition that I just told you about, we are trying to personalize the advertisement that are being shown to the clients. So if you're a 35 female who is just smiling there, you have to see a different advertisement or vice versa. I think these kind of ways will be important for them to personalize. Secondly, when you understand the full path of the customer, if you are, again, a 35 female and then you just first go to the specific kind of shoes and then you go to specific kind of shirts, you have to bring them together, or you have to personalize my pet. So I think these two will be helpful in the transformation to make the brands.
Ben, how do you make retailers retain their brand value and increase their through products and services and data analytics that are there?
So there was a brand that someone mentioned earlier that gave them a bad experience, but one of the brands that I love working with is Nike. So we work with about 850 brands, but tend to be tenants in the malls. And the reason I like them is they go fast, they try stuff. They're rapidly moving their shoppers away from the till. The till is going to go away. It's all purchased directly with the staff in the store, the athletes as they call them. And they've got a really open attitude to sharing their data too. So they, through us at least, they share a lot with Under Armour and Puma and Adidas to better understand the shopper, because what they realize...
So what you're telling me then, sorry to interrupt, is that Adidas and Under Armour and Nike are sharing information?
Yep. They won't share information about you as an individual.
No, not, But more importantly, they're sharing their information about how to secure the business somehow or another.
because they're realizing that the highest value shoppers tend to actually shop multiple brands.
Yes.
They're not solely loyal to one of the brands.
Okay, that
And
makes
more
sense.
Yeah, which makes that's why we have malls. We go to multiple brands. We want to shop around a bit, and the more they can understand about that experience, the better. And then the challenge is just staying one step ahead of the rest. So they're using more of a shared data approach. Also, there's something that's very interesting is nowadays you can get access to people's credit card data and their bank data relatively easily. So you can see where are they shopping that's not my brand or not my mall, or when are they going to stores outside of the mall that they could be going in the mall. So a really obvious one for us is which store are people going to that's not in the mall, and that should be in the mall. Bring it in. Or which restaurant, and that will improve the whole shopper experience, not just their time in Nike or their time in Puma.
I'm interested to hear that people or the companies of that size are sharing information on that, trying to get better at what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd say they're one of the most advanced in that mindset.
David, how do you increase the value of your brand as a retailer by using data analytics?
I guess there's so many different levels on that one.
Sure,
questions.
I understand.
Part of it, I guess, is letting information about your brand and about your products, where they want it, when, and where they want it. Not only in the shopping mall, but also at home. Working out and now that you have a much more close relationship with the customer and the brand, they can virtually tailor-make your shirts almost, to the point where as new brands come up, you can have your shirts all organized and picked up. So you can order it from Australia and pick it up in Dubai, or order it from Australia and pick it up in Hong Kong, or they order it in Australia and they ship it back to Australia. So the brand now is everywhere. There's no such thing as a one location type brand. So how do you start a brand, or how do you maintain a brand internationally? Because you are competing internationally. So
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, as I was saying, the question you asked me is like a universe of questions.
Where do you begin? That's what you're trying to say to me.
But it is, I say it again, cooperation. The companies and the malls and the retailers that work together, they work closely with their suppliers in very clearly, in collaborative way, can act fast, move fast, look after their customers fast, and really create that brand that you need to talk about. And also create new brands. I mean, a lot of stores have the same brands all over the world. What was exciting about the small mum and pop stores were their little boutiques. So you went to that space for one thing. And now that stores are getting smaller and there's more space, the idea of bringing back the boutiques and the ma and pa type shops into that shopping center space. But how do you market it? How do you let people know they're there? That's where a buzz comes in and helps them look up, not just pop-ups, but really just new boutiques, and even what's called a magazine store, where you have a store that runs for 3 months in one particular, maybe wine, or it might be fashion or jewelry, and then 3 months later it goes to something else. It might sell bicycles, and the next time it might sell toys. But it's a fully curated space that actually attracts more people. But how do you let people know about that? How do you know even that people want it? And again, they do, because then you can use that around the world. So these are things that if you look at worldwide, you can get great ideas to build new brands and fill your space and get more people to come into your mall.
Brands, retail brands, how do you build them with data?
I think I could put this into maybe two verticals here. I think first of all, understanding who your customer is. So if we look at it, you're talking internationally, but if we look at, let's say, a singular shopping center or retailer, understanding who your customer is, and that's being discussed now very much in terms of demographics. We've got various technologies out there with facial recognition, all these different technologies. At ShopperTrack, we recently partnered with Facebook. Okay, which we see as the next kind of wave of truly understanding demographic, because Facebook have geolocation, and there's all levels of technicalities there, but we could provide, let's say, information from a source like a Facebook, okay, a social media. So you're understanding exactly who your customer is. And the second is what their behavior. How are they behaving once they come into your store? So location-based interior analytics, location-based analytics, using mobile phone tracking, or again, there's other technologies, cameras that can produce heat maps, etc., etc. All of these technologies are all fantastic to develop. Who is your customer? and how are they behaving. And then from there, the service can be, service marketing. There's a whole load of levels that can be benefited from that.
Okay, we are going to go into the audience now. Can we have some microphones passed out, please? Does anyone have any, or what questions does the audience have to put to our panel today? And if there's no one going to put up their hand, I have another 6 or 7 different questions that I want to ask because I'm having a great time up here. Anybody have any questions? Anything you want to put to these audience? No? It's been suggested that retailers' ability to innovate is limited in part by their lack of speed in adopting the new tools. Ben, you were talking about that earlier. But how prevalent is that? I mean, are there also RANs already established in this pecking order, or where are we at with that? If you're not a quick adopter, are you out of business?
So I think if you look at the headlines in Europe in the last few months, yes. I mean, some of the retail businesses that had very, very credible propositions, the proposition is not dead. It's the fact that they haven't innovated the proposition. So department stores suffering big time. But actually, that's not that different than an offline version of Amazon. They just haven't got the model right. So I think some have already suffered. I don't think it is too late. I think that there's plenty of companies like ours. I'm sure we're the best, but there are many other companies that have got great ideas. Willing to put them into practice very quickly. You can sweat us and make us work for you. The businesses have to understand how to do that, how to work with companies like ours to catch up and move fast.
How long does it take? And I'll ask this to the rest of the panel too, but this is a question for me. Okay, so I want to get into the game and I want to start catching up because I'm a laggard. So give me a timeline. Is it like a week, a month, 2 years, 5 years? I mean, then you're dead if it's 5 years, but Demirhan, tell me.
I think 6 months to 1 year can be enough if you are lagging.
So you can catch up basically. If you're a laggard today, in 6 months you think you can be a player.
Yeah, you can start, but I think in 1 year you can really achieve a good transformation. But I think one of the important thing is here, like to persuading your internal organization. Like if you have to use cloud, for example. If you want to be agile, you have to use cloud.
Sure.
We are developing new features every month. We are testing and deploying it, and all our global customers are getting it. But if you are insisting on on-premise, like, you cannot do it in 6 months or maybe ever. So another thing, if you are, for example, using some other BI tools in accounting, in ERP, or some other tools, you have to integrate them, and the technology that you want to adapt and the technology you want to move forward should be applicable to this or easily integratable to this. And I think there should be some recommendation engine and AI engine at this era with the technology you choose as well. And also, the remaining part is, I think, managing your internal organization. Like really make them believe that you have to do to win, and it's the only way, and they have to change their ways, they have to change their thinking about mentality, about data security. I think the biggest challenge is persuading the internal organization.
Ben, what do you think about all of that? I'm talking.
I agree. I think one of the challenges, though, is sometimes if you aim for the perfect solution where everything is integrated and the whole organization is behind it, it's too late. Yeah, so I think actually quite often it's good to have almost a parallel track that says this track doesn't have the same governance, doesn't have the same procurement processes necessarily. It can move faster. And then when something works, you bring it into the main business. Otherwise, you're never going to catch up.
Okay. David?
Oh, no,
George, you George, okay, no, go ahead, George.
I think, on the point that you're talking about, how long will it take to catch up? I would like to make a point. It may or may not be popular in the room, but it's also really important to understand or know if the business is doing the fundamentals right.
Yes.
Because I've personally witnessed there's a lot of discussion around, okay, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this, but the retail equation is not dead. You still need traffic, you still need conversion, you still need sales, right? Basket size.
Yes.
All of the fundamentals is still very much alive, and it's what drives the bottom line. So, we believe that those fundamentals have to be in place before you can stack on top of it. So, I would jump in and say, if you are in that situation where you're kind of panicking, we don't have the Wi-Fi analytics or facial recognition or etc. start with the core. Is that bit working well? Do you know your conversion rates? Do you know your true traffic? Do you trust it? Is the culture that I mentioned earlier on in your organization there to believe in it? Sorry.
David, go ahead.
The technology's out there right now, so you can adopt technology quick. And China's seen that. You can go from, I was in China in 1980, and every 3 years was like going into a time machine and going 10 years ahead.
Yes.
So they've leaped and jumped over everybody. And you can do the same thing. The technology is not the issue, it's management and your decision and your planning. It's your organizational structure, putting it in the culture of an organization. So technology-wise, you can catch up within 6 months. There's no problem.
Okay.
But what I do say, one thing about that is that don't wait too long, because you're actually leaving money on the table. One of my oppositions did a study with Simons, looked at their malls, and they looked at all the directories and information, and they worked out that they had a 2% increase across the board, all the malls, by putting in directories as a simple thing to make things easier. Just to make that little step easier, one small thing, 2%, that's hundreds of millions of dollars that you're just leaving on the table. And I'm sure all your companies do the same thing. You can show a real ROI. So the longer you guys wait to do things, the more money you're leaving off the table.
All right, so I have the floor. I'm the moderator here, and we run an organization that needs to be, basically, I got to step out of the way and let things happen for the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers from a digital point of view. All right, so here's a question for the panel. I'll ask each and every one of you. What can we do as an organization, use us as a sample, and in 6 months to a year, with an investment, what can we do to increase our membership, do the things that you do for a retailer? Now, if you're too shy to answer, and you won't embarrass me if you say don't even bother, but I'll get somebody who's on our team who's more capable and relevant to be able to deal with you. But think about it. Is there anything, let's start with you, Ben. Is there anything you can think of immediately that we should do? How do we embrace it? Because we're up here talking about all of this, bringing people like you, the leaders in the industry, having speakers like David Meerman Scott, having others come and speak, and we're sitting here and we're trying to keep the industry alive and going that way.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you do if you were us?
How big's your budget? How big is your budget?
Good question.
Well, I don't know. I think it's big enough. Let's put it that way. Big enough.
That's always the first question. So I think there's probably 2 areas I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. One is do this, not necessarily on a panel, but if you it's so common that I see clients getting one technology provider in a silo, another one in a silo, another one in a silo, even playing them off against each other to get pricing down.
Yeah, but what happens is that you don't get a homogeneous result. You get, silos.
Yeah.
That's never going to work.
That's not great. So if you get them in a room, and you appreciate that we start these companies because we want to change stuff and do stuff. It's not just about making money.
Right.
So if you get those people in a room together, they'll have great ideas together.
Yes.
And there might be some overlap, but they'll figure that one out. So I think what you guys could do is help that conversation. If you got not one, but you got 4 or 5 in a room, what would they do together? Let's create something amazing here. And then depending on the budget, it's then put that into practice. Let's put it somewhere and show the world that it works. Not just on the screen, but in reality.
Okay, that's what we need is reality. Demerhan, what do you think?
I agree as well. Like putting this kind of people, like our kind of people, on the stage all together and talking about this is very great. But maybe you can add some customers as well. So as company owners, we're just talking about technology and it's all good. But when retailers see the retailers' passion and retailers' outputs on the stage, I think it will be more exciting. So maybe next time you can bring up some customers as well, so they can share their stories with our stories, so that will be more influential, I think, than transformation.
All right. Okay, good. David, what's your thought?
Well, I think
you don't even know where to begin, right?
No, I think you're doing okay. I mean, you've opened up a conversation. I mean, I do this in China and Las Vegas and Southeast Asia.
Yes.
And you are getting people on the stage from various different companies. And you should have competitors. There should be 2 or 3 people in the market doing the same thing. So there's some active competition. Competition is a great thing in the world.
Okay.
You're communicating to all the major mall owners and managers and CIOs and the facility managers. You're doing all that. You're bringing that together. Probably, again, more workshops and more, even half-day workshops and say, okay, well, where in the Middle East, where do you want to go? There are
Right.
certain requirements in the Middle East which are different to other parts of the world that has to be respected. You have a huge, and again, but you also have, this is where the growth is in the world for shopping centers.
Yes.
You are actually the focus of the world at the moment. I work in China, and that's my major part of it, but after China, you are the next best place in the whole universe. And so you have an advantage. You can actually go to any supplier in the world now and ask for the very best solutions. I don't know if you guys know that. And as your organization, you can facilitate that and say, hey, let's make the Middle East the most technologically advanced, completely, and cooperative. And if we can do that, if the Middle East can be cooperative,
Yes.
then
We're very cooperative.
well, no, you can, man. I'm not going to go into the thing, but
Yeah.
Carrying the four corners of the blanket,
Please.
working together is the most important thing. And that's,
Okay.
I think, and you do that. So you.
All right. So we're started, and it's not a total loss yet.
No,
Okay.
you're doing well.
George.
Well, as we serve more the brick and mortar industry.
Yes.
I would say, I'll ask you a question. Do you monitor or study the performance of these shows? Oh, hello? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yeah, I heard that. Yeah, well, look, George, I'm the moderator of this panel.
Right, okay. So you ask the questions.
No. I can tell you, yes, we do. We check on the nationalities of who comes here. We check on where they focus on.
Okay.
We talk to our sponsors and exhibitors to find out what's been successful, what's not been successful. We try and realign the targets.
Okay.
And we also measure year over year where we're at financially. So
Right.
those are some of the things. But they're not digital.
Right. So to look at that digitally, right, and this is just something I've been thinking about,
Yeah.
over the last couple of days, right, as I do. Would it not be interesting to understand, for example, the traffic in this hall?
Yes,
right?
wonderful. Yes.
In real time.
Yes.
The occupancy of this hall.
Yes.
So how many people are in this hall right now?
Yes.
Available on your mobile phone.
Okay.
Would it not be interesting to know in the exhibition area?
Yes.
You have an empty space, segregate it into virtual zones.
Yes.
Using mobile. Everyone in here has a mobile phone.
Yes.
Track the movement throughout that space, and then from that you start to understand the performance not only of each exhibitor, right? No, but because they pay money to be there, right?
Yes.
Which stand, which section, which area of this conference center is the most popular?
Okay.
So when it comes to releasing that, selling all that, anyway, we're talking kind of revenue there, but understanding
Sure.
performance of these events would be through data would be massive. Because ultimately this is where we all come together and learning which speakers, which panelists, which actual events like this are the most popular to tailor and custom that for the following years.
Well, we'll be back and doing some business with you all. But I have we're out of time, as you can see, but I have a last question, because we do have the time for this. If you have one main point to get across to who we have in the audience today, what would it be? It could be one sentence, can't be 10 minutes, but it can be one sentence to 2-3 sentences. George, I'm putting you on the spot because you're first. What do you
Okay.
think?
I would say we've discussed a little bit about the process, of implementing technology, and I'd say that each organization in this room needs to look at that process, because I believe we're a global company, and from my experience with the sales cycle or the implementation cycle for this region versus my peers in the rest of the world, we're slow.
Okay.
It can take a long time, which technologies could have changed in that time.
Yes.
So look within the organization and be able to act faster, make decisions faster.
All right. Okay. David.
Just start. The digital transformation and digital revolution is right here. If you don't do something about it now, rather than you controlling it, it'll control you. So you really must start. It does not matter if you get it perfect, as you said. Pick some good partners, discuss what you need, and make a decision to start that journey. And once you go on that journey, you'll find your way. That's it.
Yep.
Just go and do it now.
Thank you.
As the Nike said, just do it.
I agree. Ben, tell me.
Trying to think of something different, but it's probably the same comment. I think it's be brave and don't overcomplicate things. I think there's a tendency to want the most perfect solution ever, and that will take a long time and cost a lot of money.
We don't have time to
We
do
don't
that.
have time.
You don't have
So-
time if you want to try and catch up. You've got to
Exactly.
be.
So we have a client that signed with us 3 weeks ago, and we will launch a loyalty program. They've got 38 malls. We'll launch one on December the 13th. That's quick. But there's no reason you can't do that. It's just being brave and moving fast.
Going ahead and doing it. Demirhan.
I agree as well. Like, they shouldn't look out for the perfect solution. They just have to innovate and then try different solutions. No one wants to talk about strategy right now if there is no analytics and there's no data. And they have to find, even they are lagging, they have to start somewhere and they have to invest in these technologies to start working on it. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our panel. I think they've done an amazing job. Thank you very much,
Very good.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Very good.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, George. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thanks, David.
Thank you to our moderator and our panelists for the very useful discussion, the tips, and the advice as well. The upcoming discussion will revolve around heart of a community, future-proof retail relationships that are based on strong emotions for venues where culture, art, food, music, and entertainment truly engage the community. In this session, we will have a discussion between David McAdam and Alessandro Gaffuri, CEO of CELS Group. Alessandro is a retail strategy specialist with international experience in Italy, UAE, and Qatar, working with shopping malls and leisure venues since 1997. His role is helping brands understand the needs of customers and interact more closely with them. After a career as an operation director of cinemas and theme parks, and an extensive experience as mall manager, he is now the CEO of CELS Group. Let's welcome to the stage David and Alessandro. Please welcome them.
These two right in the front. Thank you. So, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Alessandro and I are going to do a little rearranging the furniture. And then we're going to sit down at the front of the stage, and I think we're going to have a little conversation here. Also, we're open to questions from the floor at any time. But first of all, let me start by congratulating Alessandro, first of all, for his recent election, and now he's part of the board starting at about 3 o'clock this afternoon of the Middle East Council of Shopping Centers, and we really appreciate his support and what he's done for the industry, I think, regionally more than anything else. Alessandro, it's not about me, it's about you.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I really appreciate and I really pleased of the fact that I'm able to come here and, let's say, present to all the, the present member of the MECSC here at RECON our idea and feeling about the future of malls and how we actually work in the industry to support the shopping center industry.
I think one of the definitions that I had to look up was the word meta-trends. So maybe let's start with meta-trends and tell me what meta-trends means to you.
Well, sorry.
It's okay, it's fine.
I'm just going back on one slide. Okay, I pressed it too early.
All right.
Yeah, you know, we talk a lot of in the industry or here also during RECON about future of malls and the threat of e-commerce, you know, and how malls can survive in the long term. Sorry, it doesn't work. Sorry.
Man, it's all right.
No, sorry. I was looking at the slide. Sorry. So it's let's say that we believe that the new models and trends and new needs for changing the shopping center models started long way back 10, 15 years ago, and just e-commerce just pushed the rise of e-commerce pushed this this transformation. And let's say meta trends. Meta trends are trends that we can't control. So there are meta trends, big trends that are changing the environment. So cultural, the urban culture is actually changing the way we live our life.
Through demographics,
yeah,
through
correct.
economic, technological trends,
Yeah,
that
the
kind of
tech,
thing?
technology, everything is now more close to us. Where all the information are available. We're in the sharing economy, and also aging society. So the change and the shift of aging is also, let's say, changing the way we live our lives. Not just because we're getting older, but also we have, households, single-person households that are actually changing the way our customers leave our venues.
So how do you turn a shopping mall into a favorite meeting place?
Well, it's very important to, let's say, start with why. It's very important because, let's say that new needs, customers have new needs. So they want to experience, they want to be inspired, they want to have a different, a different way to live those spaces. So it's very important to start with why. It's very important to create destinations, to create real places where you can share your experiences. So places where you can actually experience something different. So where good food, good music, and culture is there to be,
It just comes together.
Correct, correct. So you have a different meaning. So it's very important to create a relationship with customers.
One of the things that I've heard is that, and it's one of your terms, it says, how do you be on parade? What do you mean by how do you be on parade?
Well, we highlighted a few, let's say, concepts, for example. So as said, how you create a favorite meeting place. You create the favorite meeting place by adapting different formats and concepts for malls. And be on parade means be the circus in town, be the place to be, create something unique, be the place where your customers want to be. For example, shopping centers should be different every time. So it should be, we have let's say, models, 5 different models. Be a chameleon.
Okay, but how do
be
you,
a community hub.
as a shopping center, I've worked in shopping centers for many, many years. How can you actually be a different venue every time? What has to happen? What do you do to do that?
Well, we highlighted a few formats, let's say, that we believe there are, a few examples to present and show what is actually possible to do. So we strongly believe that, for example, the shopping malls should be a festival. So be the festival. Be a festival-like experience. So where people can have fun, can get inspiration, can be, surprised. So create escape places, places where you feel you're comfortable in.
Okay. What's a green heart? What's a
Green
green
heart.
heart?
I mean, for example, we said one of the trends and one of the new needs is the sustainability. So a lot of people actually care about the environment and want to have green and new places to experience. So a green heart is actually to bring the green inside the mall, experience mall, and not just the indoors, but even the outdoors, or experience the green in a different way. For example, I brought a few examples, a few images here of the High Line in New York, or the breakfast on a harbor bridge in Sydney. So it's a bridge, it's a road, 364 days a year, but for one day in a year, it turns to a green environment where people go, have breakfast together, spend their time, and have a picnic. So with a basket, with families, and experience a place in a different way.
How do we do that in this region? I know that it's maybe easier in a more temperate climate. How do you do that here? How do you bring that experience to the region?
Well, I mean, even here, I see new developments. For example, we saw before, like Cityland in Dubai. So even malls are a lot more concerned about about creating nice environments for their customers. So it's not just about focus on the shopping, shopping, but on the not only the shopping related activities, but where social and social activities actually are as important as the shopping related activities. So transfer the shopping experience into a social experience.
I was last month. I was in 360 Mall, and they have a very green wall that goes all around the food and beverage area. Is that the kind of thing you're speaking of?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I go to 360 Mall, let's say, pretty often, and every time I go there, I take pictures of that wall and I share it with friends on my Facebook page because it's really something different, and it's something not, well, of course, it's man-made, but it's not something artificial. It looks really real, and it actually embraces. So you feel you're entering a different environment. So it's not just a tree placed in a corner, but it's a whole different experience, let's say.
So when you talk about seeing how things really work, like the factory idea, tell me about that.
Well, for example, formats, it's also the factory. So show how things are made, show how things work, involve customers, involve customers in showing with involving brands to show what's behind the making of a product or of an event. So people like now we're in the sharing experience. All the informations are available. So it's very interesting to have a look behind the lines.
One of the other things you mentioned was vacant spaces, and never let anything have a vacant space.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that's pretty obvious to me, though, because in the old way retail was run, as soon as you had a vacancy, it was a headache. But you're meaning something more. Is it about the
Absolutely.
destination,
No,
or what is it?
Well, I mean, of course, we're in the shopping center industry, so it's we want to achieve 100% occupancy all the time, of course, on the shops. But vacant spaces, I mean, maybe there is spaces on the community areas, but also take advantage of refurbishment or a vacant space, actually a vacant shop, and the idea is to never have a vacant space, but make that vacancy a purpose for a new destination. So create something out of that and take advantage eventually of the fact that you have a vacancy with temporary activities related to culture or pop-up shops, pocket shops, art, culture, and bring something different. So it's about also liquid spaces. Work on creating something that changes around the days, the weeks, or even the hours with lights, with sound, or in the way you use those spaces.
And liquid spaces, is that basically fountains, like the dancing fountains at Dubai Mall?
Yeah,
others like
absolutely, absolutely. That's another a good example. I got a good example. A good example, for example, is markets. Markets, you can use common spaces to bring, temporary offers to your customer, where to look for something original, different, value for money. So make that moment and that as a destination by itself.
I see Pike Street Market there in one of your photographs there. How do we do that here?
Well, but I mean, sorry. Well, for example, you see the food trucks here are very popular.
Yes.
And they started very popular, the F&B industry and the food trucks. And some of them all started bringing in a few food trucks. And also here, we have, even in the region, very good examples of the ripe market and artisans, arts.
So this is how we've embraced that in the region.
Correct, yeah.
I think that's important for people to understand, that it's not just about the same vision that you have every day when you go to a shopping center, but you have to try and work on changing the environment.
You need to create every day something different to getting your customers a way of getting bored.
How do you afford that? How do you afford that? I mean, it's a big business.
I agree, of course, but you need to align all the stakeholders. So it's about sometimes giving away space, common areas. So taking some places away from the specialty leasing
Yes.
or the marketing and aligning on the, let's say, the bigger picture to use the shopping center, common areas, shopping malls to create unique moments for your customers. At the end, it's a win-win situation. And we strongly believe in that. In sales, we actually support our clients to create favorite meeting places by different type of activities, and these are some of
So
the
there are
ones
ways
that
to
we
do that.
play with your game, play with the brand. It's something also interesting. So gamification, discover, play, experience, use technologies, augmented realities, or to also do treasure hunts, for example, in the mall. So use new technology to involve clients. For example, co-creation. Have your customers participate in the creation of their customized products. Or open museum. Have customers and visitors experience something different. As we said before, maybe it can be a vacant space, maybe it can be something interesting inside the mall, but help make the arts more accessible to everybody. So there is a lot of going on here, for example,
Yes.
on Circle Avenue. There's a lot of very interesting museums and happenings. Bringing some part of that inside the malls would be a great thing to do. Reuse example is another example. I moved it already. So like
Reuse different places in your
Absolutely.
shopping center all the time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And going back to what you discussed in your previous panel and also yesterday about artificial intelligence
Yes.
and about the fact that e-commerce is on a rise. Well, a rise, I mean, they arrived
Yeah, of
already. It's
course.
very strong as well. And it's very important to open a relationship with customers. So creating an event or deliver a valuable experience or an interesting experience is something interesting, of course, but then your customers need to share it. And it's very important to understand how to engage customers at this moment. I mean, where are your customers? Our customers and your customers are on their smartphones, let's say.
Everyone has one or two.
One or two or three, absolutely. Yeah, here's one.
Yeah.
So how do you engage with them? Artificial intelligence, you just spoke about artificial intelligence in the previous panel. And well, now I may talk a few minutes about
please.
something, a very interesting platform that we just created. So it's a chatbot software. It's an artificial intelligent robot that helps our customers to open a two-way relation. So open a relationship with their customers. And it's a simple platform that, let's say, doesn't push or force your customers to download an application or to have your customers to go on a specific website. But our platform runs on 12 different social media. So our customers use WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, WeChat, Twitter, Telegram, Viber, Slack, maybe I'm hungry,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
that is lapsus, Slack, Skype, Skype for Business, and Kik. So we go, thanks to our platform, you would go, shopping malls, the brands, would go and meet customers in their preferred social media environment. And that's changing completely their perspective. And I can show you, if you may allow me just 2 minutes.
Sure,
on the
please.
podium, we connected a phone, and we'll just show you last 2 minutes of my
please.
speech,
Go
let's
ahead.
say, and we'll show you an example. So we took a very, very well-known mall, Westfield, London, as an
Yes,
example.
yes.
So Westfield, London is very well-known, Westfield in general, to how
Yes.
they merge digital with physical. And we have, let's say, a white label mall showing how, with our system, you could leverage the relationship with customers.
Okay.
Give me a
Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we just connected a normal an iPhone, a normal smartphone, and now we're connected on Messenger with Westfield London.
Okay.
And
this is real time?
This is real time.
This happening now?
This is happening now. So we want to send a message to Westfield London, and we just ask them, like, what events you have this weekend? And they're replying now. Let's see what they reply. Hi, Sofiane. Thanks for messaging us. So this is a standard message. So at least they have a standard message, and they open slightly the door, but they're not answering. They're not answering to us. So if you imagine you're driving close to a mall, passing by a mall, or you just want to have an information from a shopping center, let's try now to ask our system. Sorry, Sofiane, I closed that by mistake. Using WhatsApp.
Okay.
Now okay, we could go with Messenger. Now we do an example on WhatsApp because we're the only company at this moment, let's say on GCC, we have an agreement with WhatsApp, so we can use the WhatsApp for business purposes. And so we'll try this on WhatsApp. So I'm asking the same question. What events do you have this weekend? Sorry, so I need to do it better. What events do you have this weekend? Oh, sorry, my fault. What events do you have this weekend? So, can be on any platform. As I showed you before, I'm happy you asked. This weekend we're launching early festive season sales. We look forward to meeting you. And you can go on like this. So, for example, I can ask, oh gosh, I'm always mistaken the word. I'm into sushi. Do you have a sushi restaurant? So the system, we have a robot behind. I'm afraid you don't have a sushi restaurant, but I suggest a famous noodle restaurant, or you can reply, you can teach the robot to reply in any way you want. So it's not just about, as you said, as we heard before, about cutting jobs and cutting costs from a call center. It's about being efficient, opening a relationship with a customer. And we can, hey, maybe what are your opening hours? And the system understands what you're asking. You don't need to say opening hours, or you don't have to say sushi. Do you have a sushi restaurant? I'm into sushi. I'd like to eat sushi. Or what's the event tomorrow? What's the event next week? So the robot understands, and based on the information we preloaded in the system, is able to reply. Not only based on the information we preloaded, in the system, but also the system collects and pulls feed from any tool you want, from the website, from a third party, and anything. We're working, for example, with residential activities. We're working with airlines. You can browse, search for destination, and get a ticket without going out of the WhatsApp world.
That's amazing. All of this.
It's a completely different experience. As actually we were talking before about artificial intelligence, this is a real example. For example, let's say we created Siri for shopping malls.
So does anyone have any questions for Alessandro? It's not often you get somebody on stage who's trying to really lead with what's going on in the digital world, but here's your chance. Walter, any thoughts on this? I think it's very impressive, first of all. I'm very impressed with how you've been able to pull this all together.
We really driven by passion, but what we think is that this type of things can actually leverage every type of experience you have in malls, from events or tactical promotion. And just the last thing I want to say, this is the chatbot. It's called Shell2AI. It's a chatbot tool. But we also created, we're into loyalty programs since long time, back in the years. And we abandoned our software, our loyalty program software, and we partnered with Salesforce. And thanks to that, our mechanics and dynamics of our ideas of a loyalty program now are packed into a Salesforce software connected to an API through our chatbot. So you can now, without downloading an application, without going on a specific website, without having a card, without having anything, just your phone, you eat at the restaurant, you write the receipt on Messenger or WhatsApp or Twitter, you write the amount of the receipt on your message, on your WhatsApp, the waiter enters a code, and without going out of WhatsApp, without going out of Messenger, you collect your points on your profile.
I think what's important to recognize here, please stand up here, we haven't forgotten about you. Yeah, but I think the point I'd like to make first is that we've had David Meerman-Scott speak, we've had Kate today, we've had Dr. Tommy Weir, we've talked about a lot of things that are happening in other parts of the world, but Alessandro's here, this is his home base in the GCC. I think it's important for everybody here in the audience to understand, first of all, that we do have a live body here who's pushing ahead with trying to adopt this. And in our last panel, the one message that some of the panelists got across was, you have to embrace this all now. And if you don't embrace it now, it's always going to be a catch-up ball game. Okay, please stand again, introduce yourself, and then we'll love to have your question.
My name is Anna. I'm working for Dubai Retail, managing two properties, Bay Square and Bay Avenue. They're community malls. From operational point of view, this system, does it require daily updates? And what are running costs, approximate running costs for such system?
No, I need to tell you one thing. There is a setup cost, and there is a monthly cost based on the number of interactions. Because, of course, Messenger and WhatsApp, they're charging us. So there is a low monthly cost and a one-time cost. And we're talking about around 40,000, 50,000 dirham as a one-time cost for the chatbot, and then a sort of around 120,000, 150,000, the chatbot with the CRM, with the loyalty program embedded. So they're very affordable prices, considering that when we go to clients, I mean, it looks like 20, 25 years ago, when agencies were knocking at the door and said, do you have a website? You say, what I need it for? And nowadays, you have a chatbot, you have a messenger, you have an artificial intelligence assistant. And fortunately, now people don't say, what do I need it for? Because the examples are there. You can see Westfield, I mean, they lost a client. No, they didn't lose a client, but my visit, if Westfield would have replied, yes, we have sushi, or Alessandro, we don't have sushi, but we have a very interesting promotion for you, a steakhouse with 20% discount today. I had an extra chance to visit Westfield at that moment. And in terms of how the maintenance, we offer around, within the package, around 100, 150 questions, so that the chatbot is able, in the first package, to answer those questions. But thanks to our very efficient backend, we can, let's say, learn, understand which are the questions that the chatbot was not, that the bot was not ready to answer, and live, or we can go on live chat, by the way, or we can, within the same day or within the week, upgrade the system. And so we can also, for example, tell to our clients what are actually the main questions that our customers, that your customers are asking.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Any other questions we have on the floor? I've got a question for you. When I'm looking at everything that I've seen and heard, and I'm excited by it all, it won't be for my generation, likely it'll be for a younger generation. The question that I have, yeah, I'll be around. I mean, I'll be on with a cane, I'll be on stage. But the question is, where is it all going to go in your estimation? Are we, I hear it's speed of change, it's speed of light. Where do you see things?
I really think with all the brick and mortar and shopping malls, we have a long life.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure people want to have meeting places where to go and share experiences and to buy, touch physically the products. For sure, it's my feeling, we'll have like shops reused in terms of sizes, but people will still need to have places where to share their experiences. And artificial intelligence will just help them and us to leverage the way they experience and will not absolutely affect the business how we see it now.
One of the things that I heard loud and clear on the panel in the last conversation that I had on stage was that they said, you can't wait. If you wait, you're out of it.
I agree.
And you know, my opinion of seeing you in action over the years, and I've known you for many years now, Alessandro, is that if there's anyone who's proactive in whatever the business they're exploring, whether it's your earlier part of your business or whether it's this new chatbot and all these other things, you're always at the leading edge. So how do you do it, first of all?
Well,
No one has more air miles than you, I know that.
Yeah, no, actually, I have my colleagues here. No, actually, I travel a lot, but I know I read and I'm very curiosity.
Yeah.
And I like to be with people, understand what they think and their vision, and I try to take, not to steal ideas, but to there's, I mean, you know better than me, there is a lot of space to learn, and I love learning. I love to see what any person, from any point of view, political, religion point of view, or economic, or our industry point of view, I love to hear different opinions, and I really believe that I can only benefit from that, from a business point of view or from a personal point of view.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we're out of time. Please join me in thanking Alessandro Gaffari for this.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. By the way, our stand is just here. Eh? If you have any questions, we have 7, 8 colleagues here. After, of course, Mazen
Yeah,
speech. Absolutely.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Thank
Thanks
you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the very useful discussion. Our last speaker for the day is Mazen Kandil. He is currently the Executive Director of Granada Investment Center Organization, which manages the well-known Granada complex in Rida City. Mazen will showcase the revamp of the shopping center and highlight a short video on the great strides the team at the Granada have taken to expand the retail, lifestyle, business, hospitality, and entertainment offerings. Let's please all welcome him with a very big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum, hayakum Allah. My name is Mazen Gandil. I'm the Executive Director of Granada Investment Center. It's a property management company that is managing Granada Mall for the last 13 years. And this is our story for all those years. But now we are presenting a bigger story that we'd like to share with you. In 2005, the mall was open. And in 2013, we launched our Granada Business Park, enjoying 8,000 employees working daily there. And also we launched the Hotel Boutique Vivenda for around 48 villa next to the business park. And then in 2018, we take the level and the bar above. So we launched with our business partner, Shaya Sidra F&B complex. And then in May 2018, we launched Granada Square, which is a unique and different experience of outdoor activities. And by end of this year, we're gonna open and launch the Hilton Hotel and Residence, which is the number 5 biggest Hilton all over the world out of USA. And then by Q3 2019, we will launch our expansion for the mall to adding another 40,000 square meters, including cinema and F&B and retail experience. Now, these fabulous 6 assets altogether it deserves a name to combine and to connect and to give a full experience throughout who's living or staying or working or eating within our complex. So we decide to call it Granadia, and in Arabic Granatiya, and this is a short video to visualize the story of the last 13 years. So, just last 2 points to mention that this effort has been done with a great Saudi teams in different perspectives. The branding agency is Saudi. This movie has been produced by Saudi agency, and our great partner for all those events currently having and coming with Squares, also Saudi company. And a lot of things are coming, and stay tuned for the coming 2 weeks. We're going to announce a huge and international big events will be hosted within Granada Square, and another announcement you're going to hear next week for a great deal of branding for Granadia, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much for all of your attention and your time here, and it's great. I think what I can say, first of all, is that there are so many people who have spent the whole time with us here today. I thank you for that. A couple of housekeeping things, first of all, for you, so that you're all aware. The first thing is that the first board meeting will be, this is for the board members that are here, will be today at 3 o'clock in Salon 7. I believe it's on the mezzanine floor. And so we look forward to seeing everyone there. I thank every one of our sponsors again. Please, when you look on the panel at the back here, it's been an amazing time for us here on stage, hosting all of you and making all of this RECON conference work. I think that the next thing is that tonight we have our Gala Awards. This is our 25th anniversary for the Gala Awards, and we thank everyone for their participation. The cocktail party, which kicks it off for the gala, is at 6 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock here in the ballroom. We have a lot more for you, and now it is time for lunch. I think Rania is going to come up and invite you for that, and once again, thanks to Line Investments again for your support, for all of your all of your time and energy and effort for being here, first of all, and also for the food and the lunch today and yesterday. So Rania, please, up to you now, and you can close it off. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, David, and thank you for everybody that is still here with us. I want to invite you, like David has mentioned, for the cocktail and dinner awards tonight. Is going to be a fantastic evening. And right now, I want to invite you all for lunch, our networking lunch, and our coffee break has been sponsored by Line Investment Properties LLC. So lunch is at Cara Restaurant. It's on the P level. Please enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks a lot. I was with you, Rani Ali. Thank you and goodbye.
Located at the heart of Dubai lies Cityland Mall, redefining retail, entertainment and green sustainability. Well positioned on the E311, Cityland Mall has a catchment to more than 1 million of the city's most affluent residents and direct access to key visitor attraction, Global Village. With over 350 fashion and retail brands, a 14-screen cinema, unique family entertainment centre and Dubailand's largest international hypermarket, Cityland Mall will serve the community in every sense when it opens in 2018.